Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to Community Board 3 Full Board. Before we begin, we have just a few announcements and a little instruction. For those who are board members, please remember to check your email. You're sent a link an hour before the meeting with a Zoom link to get into the meeting. This will allow you to come in as a panelist and not as an attendee, so that you will be able to speak. For those who are guests here this evening, welcome. I just wanted to share with you. Bear with me 1 second for my file. Okay, just a few instructions for our Zoom meeting. First of all, our meeting is being recorded. If you are a guest, if you could please go to the chat box and put in your name and your affiliation, if that's applicable, so that we can keep attendance. And if there's anything that you are speaking on, you can add that as well. If you are joining by phone, we ask you to keep your phone muted. If you look on your screen, you should see a mute button. If you're joining by computer, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, the bottom left-hand side, you will see a microphone button, and you can mute and unmute yourself that way. You can also temporarily unmute yourself by hitting your space bar on your computer. If you hit the space bar and hold it, it will unmute you temporarily. If you're coming in by phone and you'd like to speak, that is a *9 to raise your hand. During the meeting, during the meeting, the members of the board will be asked to speak first. After that, the chair will open it up to the community to ask questions. And we do ask that you raise your hand and wait to be called on before speaking. Okay, thank you. That completes the announcements. Let me get to our agenda. Okay, so first we're going to have our public session. We do have 2 speakers here this evening to speak. I see them both in the room. I'm going to allow Val to speak. I'm going to just put the timer up if you'll give me a moment, Val. And then you can start.
I'm gonna take less than 2 minutes.
Okay, so you want to go ahead without the time?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Valentina Jones. I'm a retired registered nurse, and I'm here on behalf of the Lower East Side Power Partnership. We sent a letter concerning Pier 42 to the New York City Economic Development Corporation and to the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. Our concern was about the tennis courts, the basketball courts, the public bathrooms, and the interim timing. Pier 42, there was recently a community public meeting concerning Pier 42, and there was much expression concerning the tennis courts and basketball courts and whether this was the best use of this space to service this community. Below are some advocacy ideas for the tennis and basketball courts proposed for Pier 42 interim pier deck if this is implemented. At a recent Lower East Side Power Partnership meeting, a resident shared that the cost for the tennis permit at East River Park is $100. LESPP advocates that the tennis permit fee be waived for residents of ZIP 10002 who receive Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, and/or public assistance. LESPP also advocates that healthcare workers also have the tennis permit fee waived. The other thing I'll just speak on is the meeting people also share concern about the availability of the public bathrooms at Pier 42. Power Partnership advocates for public bathrooms at Pier 42 with consideration that we are presently in a pandemic and that consideration should be taken for health and safety for present and future public health concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Val. Okay, we also have Sarah Chin, and hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, Sarah, who will be speaking regarding support for the, bear with me, Charas El Boyo. It's a public performance space for artists. Okay, give me one moment, Sarah. I'm just going to put up the timer for you. Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. Hi, I also think this will be very quick. This is the first time I've ever spoken at a community meeting, so bear with me. I just put myself on speaker because there are about 11 independent artists we're currently in the process of forming a group interested in stewarding and creating a community space for dance. And in the process of doing our research, we learned about the Charas building. I don't know the exact address, but I know it's within the district of this board. And we met with Jody Oberfelder, who's a former tenant of that building, also a dancer, and learned that the board is actively working on figuring out what to do with that space. And so we just came tonight to express our interest in learning from the board about what the plans are for Charas. We know it's under private ownership, but that the board's been working on returning it to the community and to being an art space. And we're interested in supporting or collaborating on the board with any initiatives that might help return it to the community and to artists. We're basically eager to learn and to support whatever is going on. There's a few of us who I think, Jody Oberfelder just came and she raised her hand, and Megan Curette is also here, and I believe one other member of our group might join. So just to introduce ourselves and start a conversation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the committee? Okay, then we do have, see Jody, you just raised your hand. Give you a moment to speak.
Mute myself. Okay, and how do I get the video? This is new. Where's the turn the video view options? Oh,
We're not prepared to have a video, I don't think, during public session. Did you sign in
okay,
public?
that's fine. You can see me in my hat from last year when I was at my dance studio that I now rent for $18 an hour. I am an original person from Charas, El Bohio. I loved that space. I had a classroom-sized studio. We pulled up the tiles from the floor, scraped the tar that was under the tiles off the floor, stained the floor. I invited people to come use my space for very little per hour. It was my home of creativity from 1986 to 1996. I so want to see it lived in and used by dancers and theater artists and visual artists again. I think that even if the building is taken over to be, NYU housing, there still has to be a place for the community in that space because we are many. Affordable studio space is not something that is seen very often. And like Sarah said, we're willing to continue a conversation. We can get a bunch of artists who will jump at this chance. So that's really what I wanted to say is I used to be there. I loved bumping into people in the hallways who were other kinds of artists than me. It was truly a community center. And I hope we can bring it back. Thank you.
I don't think we need the rest of our time. Unless there's an update the board wants to give us on Charas, but I saw that somebody reached out and I'm happy to follow up with them.
I think Larissa got kicked out.
Is Alicia on?
Sorry about that. Yeah, internet was a little spotty today. My apologies. Can everyone hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Alicia, we can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Sorry. Internet was a little spotty today.
Okay, I think we're ready to go on to the NYU people.
Were you
Yeah.
able to hear me, Jody?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
we heard you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, do you have the speaker forms for Jennifer? I made them panelists. You have to make them co-sponsor. You're muted, Larissa. You're muted.
Sorry. Okay.
There you go.
I don't know why I muted. I got muted. Okay. So
Okay.
next
So-
will be NYU. Dr. Dong and Grace Liu. Are they in the room? I didn't see them on the list.
I made them panelists.
Perfect. Okay.
So we should find out who is going to be sharing the screen so we could make her co-host.
Okay. Jennifer, are you sharing or?
I can share my screen if that's the easiest way to do this.
Sure.
Okay, so you might want to make her a co-host.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't. Okay,
Which is on
let me
my
try
list.
again. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
just
gonna
give
get,
us 1 minute.
Sure.
okay, my dear, you are a co-host now. You should be able to share.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Just give me 1 second, please. And I'm going to the screen slideshow. Can everybody see this lovely aqua blue slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for having me and Grace come speak. I am representing the NYU Langone Vaccine Clinical Trial Centers. There are 5 sites across Manhattan. So without further ado, thank you for the time and I'll just get started. So our mission through the NYU Vaccine Treatment and Evaluation Unit is to protect and restore human health through innovative vaccine research. With the pandemic going on right now, we find that this is an important role that we have, but at the same time, we feel that community is essential to making this process work. Given the pandemic, there have been a lot of emotions that have been quite prevalent over the last 9 months, including fear, a lot of uncertainty about what's happening to ourselves and to our loved ones, isolation as a consequence of how we can best prevent and eliminate the infections, as well as a lot of mistrust and misinformation that's been out there. So through our vaccine center, we hope to offer some strength in the face of fear and a chance to fight for the future. In the face of uncertainty, we're hoping to offer some optimism and a path forward using a lot of fact-based, well-proven scientific methods and working with experts who were committed to saving lives and reducing disability, offering some solidarity and a power to work collectively together towards this end goal. And as well as with along the lines of the mistrust and misinformation, trying to offer some confidence through accessible and credible education. So our intent today is really to provide some basic education around COVID and the vaccines, as well as a lot of the research that has gone into those vaccines. So how does a vaccine work? Essentially, the vaccines help teach our bodies how to recognize and fight invaders. Over here, you can see a pictorial representation of the body recognizing the SARS-CoV-2 virus when it enters the body. And then it sounds the alarm, which is our immune system. And then our immune system works very hard to provide and produce fighter cells and proteins that go into action, such as antibodies. And then the ultimate goal is to block or control the virus. So how do we do this in a safe way? And the question, I think the big question in a lot of people's minds is, can the vaccines cause the SARS-CoV-2 or COVID infection or illness? And the answer to that is no, based on the current vaccines that are out there getting studied and the ones that are just recently approved for emergency use. These vaccines are being tested, are being made synthetically in a laboratory using pieces of copies of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, but not the entire virus. And as a result, you're not actually getting infected with SARS-CoV-2 infection through these vaccines, so they cannot actually cause an infection. For a certain metaphor, like if you take like parts of a bike and put them together, you don't necessarily get the whole bike, but you know what those pieces are when you look at them collectively. So it's kind of the same idea with using pieces of genetic information and parts of the virus in order to stimulate this immune protective response without actually having to get people infected. So why do we need the vaccine? Partly because we want to decrease death, we want to decrease serious disease as much as possible. Sadly, this has taken like hundreds of thousands of lives in the US already. We want to be able to preserve the functioning of society, which lately we would like to return to more of a functional society by vaccinating people. We'd like to reduce the extra burden the disease is having on people who are already facing a lot of disparities. So the vaccine is a tool for us to get to that goal. And likewise, we want to increase the chance for everyone to enjoy health and well-being. And the vaccines are one way to accomplish that. And so lately there's been a lot of news and press around these COVID vaccines. And they talk about effectiveness and efficacy. And what does it mean for a vaccine to be effective? Historically, if you look at other infections or pandemics that we've had with diphtheria, once we found a vaccine, we saw a significant decline in the number of cases or people who were infected with diphtheria. Same with polio in like the 1950s, people were getting sick and had to like get treated with iron lungs. And once we got a credible working polio vaccine, those cases declined significantly as well. And now it's not something that we see a whole lot of in the developed world. Measles, likewise, once we had the vaccine and started vaccinating children, the number of incidences went down significantly, in spite of like a recent rise in the last couple of years in folks who were not vaccinating. So right now, as far as COVID, how it looks in the US with the 7-day average line, we've been seeing this steady increase. We were able to keep things at bay for the spring, and then we start a surge in the summer, and now we're still in the middle of a surge going around across the country. So the vaccines are like a sliver of hope for trying to really get these case numbers to go down and ultimately prevent people from the disease and death. So one of the questions that's out there a lot right now is how much vaccine will be available. Very fortunately, it was great news that last week the Pfizer vaccine received emergency use approval. Sorry. Okay, I wasn't sure somebody's asking me a question. Okay, sorry. The Pfizer vaccine received its emergency use approval last week, and we started our immunization program in the US just this past week. And the
Can the host mute
No, the
individual
host
mics?
can't. The host can't. But Jennifer needs to unmute herself.
I'm
Richard,
muted.
Richard, you need to mute yourself.
Richard, can you please mute yourself? I've trying to mute everyone.
I believe.
I didn't realize when I was muted.
Sorry, I muted everyone and was going to unmute you, but I could not. I apologize.
It's okay.
Okay.
All right, that's all right. I will be done with my slides soon, so we can open it up for questions. Did anybody hear me when I was talking about this slide or no?
No, if you could repeat, please.
Okay, so what I was saying is that the Pfizer vaccine, which has had very promising data, received its emergency use approval last week from the FDA for use in the United States. And early this week started getting rolled out to hospitals and nursing homes, and a lot of healthcare workers are starting to get vaccinated. Likewise with the Moderna vaccine, this one is quickly on the heels of Pfizer and should be hopefully getting its emergency use approval later on this week as well. But even between those two vaccines, it's not enough doses for the US. The government has basically agreed on pre-purchasing about 50 million doses of these vaccines, which is because they're 2-dose series, about 3 to 4 weeks apart. It's enough to vaccinate maybe 22.5 million people in the US. And that's about 7% of our population. The US makes up about only 4% of the world population. So it's quite a task and we need more vaccines. I actually just went forward too much. So my point is we still need more SARS-CoV-2 vaccine trials right now, more credible vaccines out there. Not every vaccine against COVID-19 is the same. The Pfizer and Moderna ones use a technology called mRNA, which is a type of genetic material from the SARS-CoV-2 protein. The other ones use different kind of technologies. But we need more vaccines in order to reach all populations and to end this global pandemic. And we're continuing to conduct these clinical trials for these vaccine candidates to collect longer term information and make sure that they continue to be safe for you. At NYU, we are participating right now in the AstraZeneca phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trial. And trying to recruit about 30,000 people across the US to participate. I see that there's somebody who has their hand raised. Should I stop for questions now or just finish up my slides?
No, if you could go ahead through your slides and then we'll open it up to questions. Dr.
All right.
Dong?
Okay, thank you. And then I think this is a very appropriate quote by the Dr. Orenstein, who says that vaccines don't save lives, vaccinations do. So we recognize there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy out there, and our goal right now is to continue to provide education to the community and the general population so they understand what is happening with these vaccines and will get themselves vaccinated so we can protect our most vulnerable populations who may not be eligible to get vaccinated themselves. And I included this because I like that it's a hospital for smallpox in New York City that's starting to become run down and is decaying and crumbling due to a vaccine that basically eliminated smallpox as a danger to us. So with that said, it is our privilege to do this work with you. We really hope to partner with you together in defeating the pandemic. And now that we have 2 vaccines that are very close to being approved, there's this hope on the horizon. And my sincerest hope is that this next year is a much better one for us. 2021 is looking more promising. These are some contact information for us for the various sites that we have across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Long Island. And thank you very much for the time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Dr. Dong. I did see one hand up from Troy. Do you still have a question?
Sure.
Okay. Troy, looks like you took your hand down. Are there any other questions right now? Oh, we have 2 more. Michelle Cooper-Smith.
I have one, but I can't raise my hand.
Okay, great. And I'll put you, Susan, next. Okay.
Okay. Could you discuss allergic reactions? We've been hearing about some allergic reactions. There's a big article in the Times today about who shouldn't be taking the vaccine, possibly because of allergies, and whether this is the Pfizer vaccine, whether that might be true with the other vaccines also.
So unfortunately, I haven't had a chance myself personally to read the New York Times article from today, but I am familiar with the 2 cases of anaphylaxis in the UK last week.
No, there's 2 more in Alaska now.
There's 2 more in Alaska now? All right, that's good to know. Thank you. I haven't had a chance to read this article yet, just today. So this is pertaining to the Pfizer vaccine. And the guidance from what I've heard is if you have had a severe allergic reaction to a vaccine in the past, then those are the people that need to be a little bit more cautious with regard to just signing up and receiving the Pfizer vaccine. And it's something that's best to discuss with their physicians. And people like this who've had severe allergic reactions to vaccines before, not necessarily people with like severe food allergies or allergies to other medications, but there's something about one of the components in that vaccine that might be eliciting this reaction. So for those folks, what I would suggest is talk to your doctor about whether or not this is the right one to get. I myself am a person who suffers from severe food allergies, and I have an EpiPen. And I've spoken with my allergist. The reality is that the chances of having a severe allergic reaction to a vaccine are actually quite low. And it's interesting that this is something that has happened now in 4 folks across the globe. And to be honest, we don't know quite yet what it is that is causing that allergic reaction. For people who have a propensity for allergies like myself and these other individuals who experienced it, it's important to be prepared and have like your EpiPen nearby and speak with the person administering the vaccine to you about this potential risk. We're not telling people with allergies to not get the vaccine. It's a bit of a risk benefit analysis for each person as to their risk for COVID or the chances of a severe allergic reaction happening. But if you've ever had any anaphylactic reactions to any components of a vaccine in the past, those are the people that I would say should be extra cautious and talk to your doctor before you get the vaccine.
Okay, great. I see Trevor's hand is up.
Thank you for that information. Just a couple of points and questions. Some people that I've talked to are still a bit surprised that there's trials going on with the news saying that there's approved vaccines and you still need folks for the trials. And what are you doing to make sure that we have diversity among these trials? I have heard some ads on some of the urban networks, but I'm not sure if we're getting a good mix of people for these trials. The second question is, I'm going to assume from the information I heard from an earlier meeting that we're going to need this every year at minimum a booster, not to mention variants, that we're going to have this shot just like the flu every year. But what are we doing to restore faith in our health system? Because I know I was on a few meetings in March and April when they were telling people masks don't matter and it wasn't airborne and it can't travel. We were told that for many months, and when we actually should have been wearing masks. But it boils down to what are we telling people, or what are we doing to make sure we have get that faith and trust back in our health officials?
Okay, so there were a couple questions there, so I want to make sure I answer each one of them properly. So for Pfizer and Moderna, the clinical trials are still going on. This is a very unique situation with the pandemic where we've utilized emergency use approvals for vaccines. This is the very first time in FDA history in the US that we've ever done this. And it's because we all recognize that there's this global pandemic, this emergency sort of like public health problem that's out there. So even the Pfizer and Moderna trials are ongoing right now. We are actively recruiting for other COVID vaccine candidates like AstraZeneca, there's Johnson & Johnson, there's Novavax, there's Sanofi. There's a lot of different candidates out there right now because there's just not enough of these vaccines to vaccinate the global population. Sadly, this has affected the entire world. And so there's a big coordination of the international regulatory agencies and scientific communities around the world to find find many vaccines. This is an ongoing conversation that the regulators, the pharma companies, scientific communities, and experts take very seriously about trying to take this real-time data that we're getting from these trials and implement them in the future trials that are planned out. So for example, there's this question as to if you were offered the Pfizer vaccine and you're already enrolled in a clinical trial, what does that what does that mean for you? So sadly, I can't say specifics because this is very specific to each trial as to how they will consider this, but it's a very serious topic that that the scientific community takes very, feels is very important. To your other question regarding rebuilding faith and trust, this is honestly, this is where we begin, right? We're trying to engage people in the community at all levels to try to really provide education that's fact-based, science-based, and try to debunk myths around vaccines, for example. And that's not a small task to take on. It's actually quite a hefty task. I'm a little bit disappointed that in the last couple of years, like faith in science has gone down around the US at least. And this is one of our first steps is trying to, talk to people, meet with folks, provide some education as to why a vaccine is important and what it means for each individual based on their own personal health beliefs and sort of personal lives. So I am open to a lot of ideas for how we can do this together, because it's not just like large institutions like NYU that are going to be able to accomplish this alone. Like we want to be able to do this at a more national level. And it starts with like listening to people who've built their careers on science, scientific method, vaccines, and public health. So I think it's going to take a lot of steps. I know there's certain communities that have more mistrust with medicine and based on history. So I fully acknowledge that there's certain communities that have been like disproportionately, if anything, disenfranchised from like clinical research. And we are actively trying to work with recruiting and enrolling those folks in these trials. For example, people with chronic medical conditions who are at a higher risk, essential workers, people with like lower literacy levels, people of certain ethnic racial backgrounds, because sadly, this has disproportionately affected those communities. So we are working very hard to include those folks in the trial so that they are represented, such that when the vaccines actually get approved, there's a higher chance of it being received by those folks. And the last, sorry, you had more questions that I'm trying to make sure I answer. Oh, the yearly vaccination part. To be honest, we don't know yet if people will need to get this once a year. Many of the trials are ongoing for a duration of 2 years. And during that time, during like predefined time points, like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, we're collecting blood samples to evaluate like the immune response and make sure there's like a sort of a durable response in the immune system to these vaccines. So there's a chance that it may not be every year, but we don't know just yet, because like the longest trial that we have this data from is 6 months. So we will learn more as we go. But to your point, there's a possibility it might be a yearly vaccine. There's a possibility it could be every 2 or 3 years, depending on what the data shows.
Okay, Mei Lee, your hand is up.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I saw one of well, I guess, as you probably know, besides just the fear of the vaccine or fear of science, when vaccinations come, some may not have a fear of the science or the vaccine, but they have a fear of their personal information and how it's going to be collected and who it's going to be given to. So I know the governor has promised it's definitely not going to be given to, the federal government, but I think that everyone kind of has to keep that pledge. Yeah. The other thing is, in one of your slides, I saw that, and you said that you're trying to recruit for a specific trial.
So as part of
and then you had I think there was 3 bullet points about the kinds of people or the characteristics of the people. I think it was related to health more. So, I mean, is that what you're here to talk to us about today as well?
We can talk about that, but I didn't want to take up too much time on the agenda if there's not enough time. My primary goal is just education. We do happen to be recruiting and enrolling for one of the COVID-19 vaccine trials at NYU. And there's other ones on the horizon for us that we'll be participating in. So it's not like today you have to sign up, but we do want to get the word out. I think in some communities, there's less information about what the vaccines are about. And so there may be this hesitation to sign up for the clinical trials. So my first step is really education. If people want to learn more about these clinical trials, great. I'd be happy to share more information with you with regard to that. But I can understand the hesitation with regard to like the government and tracking personal information. My hope is that the governor adheres to that so that when people do get vaccinated, the personal information is not being kept or reported to certain authorities. I know people are getting like vaccine cards saying they got vaccinated. So that's more for your personal like little personal remembrance. But apart from that, I have yet to hear more about how they're using that information.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Larissa, I had my hand up.
Sorry, Alicia, yes, you had your hand up before Michelle. So Alicia and then Michelle, please.
Hi, yes, thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation tonight. I'd just like to say, well, actually, it's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Has the clinical trial, have you had any cancer survivors taking the vaccine just yet? And if so, how many cancer survivors have signed on for it?
So I don't actually know the specifics from a national level. Sadly, cancer is one of the conditions that is an exclusion criteria for some folks. There are certain cancers that are curative, and those folks can be included in these clinical trials, but I personally haven't had access to the numbers to see sort of like what percentage of these people we have. Those so people with like former cancers or people who have like immunocompromised states or immunocompromising medical conditions right now are not being included in these trials because the thing is we don't know what's going to happen to them when we vaccinate. So they have not been included just yet. So a lot of data we have does not represent those groups, unfortunately. Hopefully,
Jennifer,
sorry,
does that also, I'm sorry, does that also include diabetics as well?
Oh, we have a lot of diabetics in the trial.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're including people with like hypertension, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, obesity, people with diabetes, heart disease, like chronic lung conditions, because these are the people who have like a higher risk for severe illness if they were to get COVID. So we are actually including folks from those medical conditions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably wrap it up.
Yeah. All right. If there are any other questions, I mean, I'm also happy to share my personal email or my email at NYU if people want to reach out and have more questions. But again, thank you for having us. This is really just the start of the conversation around educating around these COVID vaccines. So please feel free to email. I can provide my email to the coordinators.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Okay, that will conclude public session. We are now going to move on to elected reports. I believe we have a special guest here. We still have him. Senator Chuck Schumer should be joining us. Is he still on? Senator Schumer?
I see him on.
Okay, yep, I see him there. If you're having difficulty unmuting your mic, just let me know in the chat.
In the chat, I don't think he is here yet. I think someone from his staff said they would unmute his mic when he is here. So I think it's someone from his staff on under his name.
Okay, so he's still not here, so it's still just Scott. Okay. Okay, so until he gets here, if it's okay, we can move on to Yuli New. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Hi, this is actually Shivani. I'm from Eulene's office. She jumped onto CB2 quickly, but we'll be back right after she's done speaking. So I can ping you guys when she's back on.
Okay, thank you, Shivani. Appreciate that. Okay. Bear with me. Okay, let's go down the list. Do you have anyone from Mayor de Blasio's office? I did see someone from the comptroller's office, Scott Stringer's office.
Hi, everybody. I'm here. It's Luke Wolf from City Comptroller Scott Stringer's office. I want to start off by wishing everyone a happy holidays. Everything's untraditional this year, but hope you're all doing well and staying safe. A few quick updates from our office. First, I want to talk about something which I know is important to this board, which is supporting small businesses, which is why 2 weeks ago, the Comptroller launched a plan to specifically support small businesses during the holidays. So some of the recommendations include making sure they have the digital tools which they need to have an online presence, which is more important now than ever. Really having the city support and ramp up for holiday markets and outdoor festivals so New Yorkers can shop safely outside at their local stores. Work with designers and manufacturers to make sure that those key products, which are more needed now than ever, are manufactured here and can be sold to small businesses here. And also using Link NYC and other public assets to support and promote small businesses in the neighborhood. So I can drop the link to the full plan in the chat, but those are just some of the recommendations we're putting forward to support those mom and pop businesses, which we know are so vital and are struggling right now. The Comptroller also released his Making the Grade report this month, which is our annual report card on how the city is spending money with our MWBEs. And while the city overall received a grade of a C, what we found is that only 4.9% of the city spending went to MWBEs, and the city received an F overall for African American spending and a D with women-owned businesses. So clearly a whole lot of work to be done. And part of that study as well was we surveyed over 500 MWBE businesses across the city. We found that 85% said they would not think they'd be able to survive the next 6 months. So we need to really be able to support these small businesses and put together a host of recommendations to make sure the city's doing its part through its contracting and funneling money towards these MWBEs, which we need to keep alive. And the last thing I'll touch upon is as winter approaches, the Comptroller put forward a plan to specifically support our homeless New Yorkers and help them move off the street and into either shelter or more supportive housing. Some of the recommendations that we would like the city to take up are 1, making public restrooms more available, 2, open more drop-in and warming centers. I know, especially now with the snowstorm now, really shows how vital those are to have open and available, and also keep pace with supportive housing development. So we know how important it is right now that we have those experiencing homelessness, have the support from the city they need. And we really hope the city takes up some of our recommendations to make sure that we're helping those folks get the services they need and eventually get them off the streets and into supportive housing and the housing that they need. So I'll drop some of those plans in the chat as well, my email address, and I hope everyone has a happy holiday.
Okay, thank you. I see Philip from Public Advocate's office. And if you don't mind, Philip, I apologize. I'm just going to share my screen for the timer before you get started. Okay, go right ahead. Philip?
I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, downtown. Good to be with you. First, I would start, by saying, happy holidays. I hope, and our office hopes you're well. Also, happy Hanukkah for folks in this time. I want to make an announcement here. I always get really excited, actually, someone who's been here now for about a year. We just released our annual worst landlords watch list. And I personally, as someone who's the liaison to the tech and data team, this is a tradition of the Public Advocate's Office, but we have really been able to take it to a next level. And this is an opportunity where, big data, like data around violations in a city, it can comes together with advocates, with residents, with our Office of Public Advocate's Office and Jamani Williams, really using that for immediate turnaround and holding accountability around, around people's living standards in this city. And so I say, the worst landlords list catalogs 100 of the most egregiously negligent landlords in New York City, as determined by widespread, repeated, and unaddressed violations in buildings on this list. This year, the buildings owned by the worst landlords in the city are overwhelmingly in Black and brown neighborhoods hardest hit by COVID-19 pandemic. And it's an information sharing tool intended to allow tenants, public officials, other concerned individuals to identify, which residential property owners are consistently flouting the city's rules intended to protect the rights and safety of tenants. This is the second list from our office. And I leave with this anecdote about why this is so valuable is that, when you take this technology, this data in this intentional way, and you bring these parties together. When I first got here, we did this list and brought Harlem residents who in NYCHA who hadn't got their items, their buildings fixed or their apartments, and we put them on the news and we released this list. The next day they were getting fixes, right? So that's some of the power that's demonstrated. I'm going to leave it here in the chat. And I close out by saying, if people don't know, I usually twice in this time, I put together an email with all of the legislation, all of the bills, all the advocacy, and some of our quotes, what we're doing. I'll make sure I send that to Community Board 3 and share that with the rest of the board. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you're well, and I'll send my information if you need me to call me or email me. I'm one person alone in Manhattan, born and raised, but so thankful for your time tonight.
Great, thank you, Philip. Okay, let's see. We also have Caroline from Senator Hoylman's office. Caroline, if you'll just give me a moment to put the timer up. And you can go ahead. Carolyn, are you here?
Hello?
Hi, Caroline.
Hi, sorry.
Restart the timer.
Okay, stop it. Sorry about that. Thank you. Go ahead. Caroline? Okay, we'll come back. Do we have a representative from Kavanaugh? Chantal, I think I saw you in the chat.
I am here. The senator should be on as well. Let me just check in with him.
Oh, if you could please, thank you.
Harvey's on if you want to circle back around.
Well, hold on one second. Okay, so Harvey is here. Okay, Harvey.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Everyone. Happy holidays, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying this. For me, it's the last night of Hanukkah, so I hope you enjoy these the holiday time. And for me, I'm really focusing on the time to the end of 2020, which has been a crappy year to say the least. I'm looking forward to 2021 and thinking about how we advance the values of social, racial, and economic justice in a new year. The one thing on the state legislatures happening this year is we're trying to push for revenue. I know Senator Kavanaugh, Senator Hoylman, and I are all, and some of them new, have been pushing for revenue. We need new revenue this year. We need a blanket eviction moratorium. We're hoping that we go back in the session next week to vote on the blanket moratorium, as well as at least an increase in personal income tax for millionaires and billionaires. Basically, New York is broke, New York City and New York State, and if we don't raise additional revenue, the cuts we're going to see across the board. We've already seen 14 non-assembly budgets cut. It's really hurting across the board. So if something you guys could do, a holiday wish, maybe call the governor and suggest that you agree to raising revenue for high income earners. They're not going anywhere. Statistically, they're not going anywhere. We should at least do that. And then hopefully we can do Brad's pied à terre tax, my mezzanine debt tax, increasing in taxes for corporations and LLCs. There's a lot of things we could do that could raise billions of dollars. We need $7 to $8 billion this year, and then we'll need additional money next year just to deal with the cuts. And of course, Eulene's buyback tax and Phil Steck's stock transfer tax. We need them all. But we should at least get some of them this year. We should push for more next year. We need 7 to 10 billion this year and 30 to 50 next year just to deal with the deficit. That doesn't help us with our, and we need money for canceled rent and money for excluded workers and all the other things that makes New York who we are. Yesterday, my SCAR bill separation of families bill was signed by the governor. I was excited to see that he signed it. And it really helps for those people who remember 2.5 years ago when the president separated families at the border. We had over 600 kids coming to New York. Senator Benjamin and I introduced a bill that was passed by the legislature this summer and signed by the governor yesterday, which will really focus on the kids who are here on federal care, what the services they need, so New York can know that those kids are in our state, and then we can provide services if it ever happens again, and hopefully it'll never happen again. And so, hello.
Hi, Harvey. I heard you were asking for only 50 billion. How come so little?
You think we should? I think we should 50 billion in New York State. We at least need that.
Yeah.
You think we should push for more?
Yeah. How about $1 trillion?
Well, we could get $1 trillion from the federal government and then have 50 billion from New York State, and then we could really cover the costs that we have.
Yes, give us money. Thanks.
Money, 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 money.
Money. That's what we need. And so, you know, I want to respect other people's times. I want to wish everyone a happy holiday. If there's a question, I'm happy to answer it. But I know my colleagues will reinforce the things that I missed out on.
All right. Before moving on to the senator, do we have any questions for Harvey? I see one hand raised, 2 hands. Jackie, I see your hand. If we could make it.
Hey, I'll be right back. Then I'll go do some. What'll be about 5 minutes, Alicia?
About if you hold. Do you want to hold, Jackie? Do you want to hold your questions and the senator can speak? If you can, please. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Senator.
No, that's okay. We're just, not much is going on here in Washington. So I know I scheduled this and I want to keep the schedule going, but I have a bit of limited time. If you don't mind, I apologize.
Please, and thank you for your patience.
Okay, so I'll try to speak for about 10, 15 minutes and then open up for questions for 10, 15 minutes. I try to speak to most of the community boards at least a couple of times a year. So first, I want to thank you all for your service. I know what community boards are like. I started out as a local assemblyman and then congressman, and I thank you for all your good work. And when you're on a community board, when things go wrong, you hear about it. When things go right, no one says thank you. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. You're what democracy is all about in the classic, beautiful, grassroots sense. So I thank you for your service. So let me say a few things here first. And by the way, happy holiday to everyone. I know you're busy, your jobs, your families, the ups and downs of life, and the fact that you devote yourself to the board is important. And I hope that this holiday season gives you a little rest and time for thought and time for everything else. Now, this has been an awful year. Queen Elizabeth gives an address close to Christmas every year about the monarchy. And I think in the bad year when Diana and Charles were having all that trouble, she called it the annus horribilis, the horrible year. And I think we've had that here. We've had the worst healthcare crisis in 100 years since the Spanish pandemic flu. We've had the worst economic crisis in 75 years since the Great Depression. And then we've had the awful deaths of people like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and here in our city, Eric Garner, showing the racial bigotry and division in this country that we must overcome. The only good news at the end of it all was the fact that we got rid of this evil, bigoted man, the worst president in the history of the United States, Donald Trump. So that gives us some hope for the new year. And one other thing that gives us some hope. You know, Trump tried to make war on our democracy, both before the election and then after, and tried to upend that democracy in many different ways. And it shows you the founding fathers, when they set up the country, never really calculated that we'd have such an evil, despotic man like Trump. So there are lots of weaknesses in the structure of our democracy, the Electoral College and many others. But the good news here is that the roots of democracy and the peaceful transfer of power go pretty deep. And so at the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee, which as the leader of the Democratic Party, I have a lot to do with, we have a lawyer named Mark Elias, who's the best election lawyer in the country. And he opposed Trump on every one of these things. And 80% of the cases we won. But here's the amazing thing, 70% of the cases with Republican and Trump point judges we won. So they wouldn't go along with his utter bullshit about, you know, voter fraud and made up ballots and all of that. So it shows you the roots of democracy go pretty deep. Let me talk about COVID, which is probably the #1 thing on your mind, and it was on Harvey's mind when he was speaking. First, as you know, Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, and I negotiated the CARES Act, which was the greatest piece of social legislation, government legislation in a very long time. The $2.2 trillion of the CARES Act was the most money the federal government has ever pumped into our economy. And it was quite progressive, not everything we wanted, but a lot of good things. $600 for added to unemployment. And that was, I authored that. And that was not only for those who were unemployed and typically unemployed, but we added in gig workers and freelancers and part-timers and very small business owners to that. We got over $100 billion for New York altogether. We saved a whole bunch of our hospitals, but particularly our poorer and inner city hospitals by giving them money. We created something called PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. The first rollout of that was terrible because the administration made it so that the big bankers, if you knew a banker, you'd get money. But if you didn't know a banker, you were out. But in the second round, we walled off $60 billion to go to poor communities. We created $10 billion for community development financial institutions, CDFIs and MDIs, minority development institutions. And small businesses got about 80% of the money. Small little businesses, many inner city, many minority. So we did that. We got the MTA $4 billion. Trying to get them another $4 billion now. I'll get to that. We gave $1 billion to the schools so they wouldn't have to cut school aid. And in the PPP program, we not only included nonprofits because they often do a lot of the social services, but we even in the inner city, Brooklyn, Queens, small little churches are doing most of the social service, and we were able to help them as well. So this all worked out pretty good, and it passed. But the trouble was that we thought COVID would be over by the summer. And most of these great programs have expired. In the House, we passed something called the HEROES Act. I helped write it, which was even bigger than the initial program, $3.4 trillion. And by the way, in the initial bill was the moratorium on kicking out renters. In this bill, we had $100 billion, the HEROES Act, to help pay the rent for people so they wouldn't be kicked out of their house when they lost their jobs and had no money through no fault of their own. And we did a whole lot of other things that were really good. We increased SNAP for the first time. We really put money into poor communities through minority institutions and things like that. And of course, but what happened was I had done such a good job negotiating with Mnuchin that the right wing got upset, too much federal money to too many poor and needy people. And so they stopped any other progress by adding this guy, Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, to negotiations, and he's a Tea Party guy. So now we're in a desperate situation. On December 26, 12 million people will lose their unemployment benefits the day after Christmas. And that unemployment program, which I wrote and I'm very proud of, the $600 got more people out of poverty than anything since the New Deal. And now we have to renew that. We have to renew the PPP small business program. Many of our small businesses are about to go under. And we put in that bill two things that I think you'll approve of, or put one in and took one out. We put in $600 for checks. I wanted $1,200. The Republicans were being stingy and only wanted $600, but it's $600 a person. So a family of four would get $2,400 as a check. And the horrible corporate immunity program, which allowed big corporations to totally take advantage of their workers and never get sued, which was anathema to so many of us, we didn't let happen. The one big problem, there's many problems in this program, in this bill, because it should be a lot more. The Republicans want next to nothing. And our problem when we negotiate with them is they're happy to let people starve, to let people die, to let people, as long as they don't have to spend federal money, because the right-wing paymasters who endorse them don't want to spend any money. So this program is an emergency, and it is not close to what everything we need. But when Biden becomes president, we're going to put in a big program, like the CARES program, maybe even larger, to get something done. Republicans wanted 0 direct payments. We did get the $600 person. They wanted no unemployment. We got it renewed for 4 months now, so Biden can have a chance to make it bigger and better. They wanted no money for rental assistance if people get kicked out of the housing. We got $25 billion for 4 months. Not quite as much as I would like, but still a decent amount. They didn't want to help SNAP and feeding programs. We put money in there. So the problem with the bill is we took out some of the bad stuff, but it's not enough. And we're going to have to come back, and I hope you will all help do this. We need to get Joe Biden to really go to bat and use the bully pulpit and put heat on the Republicans. We don't have that bully pulpit right now with Trump there. To really push a more robust bill. A few issues I'm working on, which I hope you will get behind now, and there's a way you can help. And this one is important, and I hope that your community board will distribute it to everyone. Elizabeth Warren and I are pushing a bill where the president pushing a proposal, not a bill, where the president on the first day he gets in office can sign an executive order, you don't need Congress, to eliminate $50,000 of student debt from every American. That's huge to so many younger people who have this huge debt burden. And it particularly affects people of color. 40% of the debt would be eliminated for people of color. The greatest reason for the wealth gap, second greatest, is student debt. All we'd like everyone to do, and every one of you are part of organizations or who have friends on your Facebook or whatever, please write, call, email Joe Biden and say, just enact this. Elizabeth Warren and I are making a big campaign. Today it was introduced in the House, and the 3 leading sponsors of it in the Senate, in the House, will be our 3 new Congress people who are elected, all great progressive, Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones, and Richie Torres from the South Bronx. So I'll send you the information here. Please get behind it. Second, we're proposing to legalize marijuana and make sure you expunge the records and send the profits that are made from marijuana to the inner city. They paid the price for this. And why shouldn't they get the money? You don't want the big tobacco companies to come in, I'm on the phone, to come in and get the money. And the third thing we're pressing is something called the Economic Justice Act. And the Economic Justice Act would take the $350 billion that's in Trump's corporate slush fund and put it in the inner city. $50 billion in child care, $40 billion in community health care, $25 billion in federally supported jobs, $115 in infrastructure, $40 billion in homeowner down payments, $25 billion for renters. It would be more money to go to poor people in the inner city than we have ever seen. Please get behind that. I'm going to send you all 3 bills, but particularly the first one where Joe Biden can do it on his first day. We have a massive campaign. If I get to be majority leader, that means if we win these 2 seats in Georgia, and you Manhattanites, I recruited Raphael Warnock to run. I wanted Stacey Abrams to run, but she wants to run for governor. But she said, she's my pal. And she said, if you can't get me, you should get Raphael Warnock, and he's running, and you've probably seen his ads and all that. He's great. But guess what? He was the associate pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem for 3 years. So he has, even though he's from Georgia, he has some New York roots. And if you want to help in Georgia by sending a small check, by doing get out the vote online digitally, I will give to your community board leaders how to contact the emails. We have a great campaign going. We're going to try to get the largest turnout we can. If I get to meet Majority Leader briefly, the 3 things I want to get done: climate. I'm one of the 2 sponsors of the Thrive Bill, which implements the Green New Deal and does it in a way that creates jobs. We have union support for some of it, and deals with communities of color who have often suffered the worst from climate and global warming. The second thing I want to do is broadly defined as democracy. Automatic voter registration, get rid of the Citizens United decision, the horrible decision which allows dark money to flow into our politics in unlimited amounts. Get rid of the horrible Shelby decision, which prevented the enforcement of voting rights. Make DC and Puerto Rico states, and they would have 4 more, hopefully, Democratic senators. And as I said, automatic voter registration. You show up at the poll, you can vote. 10 million people would vote. It would change the face of America. So those are the things I want to do. And and I give you a little summary of the things I'm trying to get done. I welcome your getting involved. I welcome, one other thing that affects you. We have a $1 trillion infrastructure bill. And as part of that is resilience, money to really protect New York if there's a future Superstorm Sandy. I know how much your community board suffered from it. And the $1 trillion bill would create 10 million new jobs. 40% of the jobs had to go to people who don't have jobs, who got out of prison, or who have very low paying jobs. They get trained and they get good paying jobs. It's a great ladder up. And we need infrastructure. We not only need regular infrastructure, bridges, roads, and all that, but we need clean infrastructure. And it would pay to do that. It would pay to make public housing green and clean. It would pay to make our schools more updated. It's a great proposal that might even get bipartisan support. So that's another thing we want to push, should I get to be Majority Leader. I have a lot more things I want to do, but I'm going to stop and answer your questions.
Well, thank you, Senator Schumer, for your time. We do have a few questions. First hand I saw that went up was Michelle Coopersmith. Go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Larissa. Senator Schumer, thank you so much for being here tonight. I know you're very busy, and I'm hoping that you're not missing calls from Nancy Pelosi in the pursuit of negotiating a deal. But
I have my little, I don't have an iPhone.
I hope you can still see who's calling you, though, like a caller ID or something.
Yeah, I see. I know who. Her number is 415-730-23, and I'm not going to tell you the last 2 digits.
Okay, thank you for protecting your privacy. So I, in my day job, spend a lot of time evaluating the federal government, specifically the Trump administration, and also our friend Mitch McConnell. So I've seen that not only in the past 4 years, but in the past 10 years, that Mitch McConnell's main intent has been to block Democratic initiatives. So yes. I'm asking you that if you will commit to using the Vacancies Act and recess appointments to address the inevitable obstruction that our friend Mitch McConnell will give, I'm sure, to Biden's appointments. So that's my first question. And the second one is similar, which is that we are deeply concerned about, a second or a third CARES Act, I guess, because only 50% at the most of our district got PPP loans. So the micro businesses in our district. I'm looking at an analysis from the city that says that 10002, where I live, only 47.7% of micro businesses got them.
DFIs and MDIs there? Because
we have one. We have the Lower East Side People's Credit Union. That's the only one that we have, I believe. Someone can correct me, but
we've given $15 billion exclusively to CDFIs because they get the money, unlike the banks, to these small institutions.
I understand that, but we are also very heavily saturated with restaurants and bars in our district who have been disproportionately hurt. Yeah. So my question is, the first one about the Recess Appointments and Vacancies Act, and also how will you do a deal that actually helps people? Because I'm concerned that the deal that you're negotiating now, you'll get small checks for people, and then the Republicans will be able to say in the Georgia runoff, we gave you checks for Christmas gifts, but we're not getting money for states and localities, and also it's just not enough money for people to pay the rent. You said $2,400 for a family of 4. That's like not enough money to pay most people's rent. So I look forward to your answers. Thank you.
Yes, you had a lot of good questions, Michelle. On the first one, the answer is yes and yes. The Vacancy Act, as you may know, is if there's an issue, there's a major office that's vacant, the president can unilaterally appoint someone for 210 days, which is, I guess, 2/3 of a year. He'll then have to appoint someone else, but I am urging him to use it. Recess appointments say if the Congress goes in recess, he can appoint people up to 2 years. I'm all for that as well. So those are ways we can overcome McConnell, as you said. He's just stonewalling. When Obama became president, he said his #1 goal was to see Obama defeated, and I'm sure he's going to feel the same way about Joe Biden.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that commitment.
In his veins. Second question. The bill does not, the rental assistance is not the only thing we do. We just have to get it out to people. We do get the unemployment, and we get PPP goes up to $350 billion. And since you know the $60 billion is for EIDL, which are grants and loans to small businesses, walled off. So there's a lot of money for small business there. This whole bill is not enough, but the Republicans were even for much less, and they run the Senate and they have the presidency. Joe Biden, I think, will introduce something similar to the HEROES Act, which is $3.4 trillion and deals with all the issues that you're talking about. And if I get the majority, I will put it on the floor and it will pass because it only needs reconciliation, 51 votes. If we're in the minority, we got to beat the shit out of the Republicans until they say uncle and we get that bill passed. And many of their states are hurting worse than ours. You know, what states are in the worst shape now? North Dakota, South Dakota. They had that motorcycle thing that spread the virus like, I forgot what it's called, Sturgis? Yeah. And so we have to fight to get it done, but I think we'll succeed. So this is just an emergency bill dealing with temporary situations. People being thrown out of the homes, we expand the eviction and give them money for that. Unemployment, PPP, so businesses can keep going for a while. But we need to do much more. I don't disagree with you. Next question.
Next question will be from Trevor Holland.
Hi, Trevor, wherever you are.
Hi, Senator. I'm actually along the waterfront in Two Bridges, and thank you for attending tonight and for those inspiring comments. I'm actually a little more inspired just by listening to what you have to say. But I know there are other speakers, so I'm going to keep my question to one and just cover one area, and that's resiliency. The Obama $100 billion or $100 million project for resiliency on the Lower East Side was stalled by COVID. And there's a spending deadline at the end of 2022. I know you've been working on extending that deadline. I'm just wanting to know how that's going right now, because it does affect a lot of states, including a lot of the red states. So I'm wondering where we are now, because that deadline is fast approaching.
Yep, we're trying to get that in this COVID bill. The Republicans thus far are resisting both extending the deadline and allowing the money that they have. Trump has not spent some of that Sandy money. He's just locked it up because he hates New York, just like he's done with Gateway and everything else. And by the way, I am very glad that he left New York to register in Florida. Good riddance. We don't want him. But in any case, so we're trying to get that done. But if we don't get it done now in this session, I think we can get it done in the next 6 months. I know the time horizon. I know the need for the money. I actually worked with Daniel Squadron, your former state senator, on some of these issues and getting the money and setting things up. So I know how important it is. I visited at some of the sites that would get that money. Thank you, Trevor.
Okay, our next question is from Valentina Jones.
Hi, Valentina, wherever you are. There you are.
Huh?
No, I just look for the yellow squares, then I know who it is.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. My question was basically the same thing. I'm with a group, the Lower East Side Power Partnership, and we sent the letter in July to you, Kristen Gillibrand, and to Nydia Velasquez about the extending the money. And, you know, when I think about COVID right now, I mean, it's very clear that Moderna should be coming out, and Pfizer, my understanding, is going to be done through hospitals. So I think that that's going to give people a lot more confidence in the whole vaccination process. The fact that Pfizer is going to be in the hospital where they have the freezers to actually do this properly. So I guess my question is, what kind of follow-up do we need to do in terms of advocating for the people? Because you said you visited one. I know one place is the Smith houses, which also had to deal with 9/11, which have HESCO barriers out in front of their house. So they know
we got some of the houses that were flooded. We got them new boilers and stuff like that over there too, which worked. But I forgot to add, there's $86 billion, not just to produce the vaccines, but to distribute them in a fair and equitable way that is in this COVID package. It's one of the most important things we can do. The Trump administration typically has no plan for distribution, none. And so it costs a lot of money to distribute them. As you said, Valentina, you got to freeze these vaccines at, I can't remember, like 120 degrees below zero. And you need 2 of them. So you got to make sure people come for the one and then come for the second. There's a lot of work to be done. And we are going to make sure that the money goes in the right way to New York. Hold on. Hello? I got to call you back. That was not Pelosi. I wouldn't talk to her quite like that.
You know, it tickles me because I go to AARP meetings and you always are one of the people that come and talk to us.
Yeah, I like going to those tele-town hall meetings. You don't look that way. I don't know if are you sneaking in, Valentina?
Oh, no, I'm retired. I'm a retired nurse. I'm over 65.
Oh, well, you don't look it is what I was saying. But in any case, well, they only have to be 50, I think, to be in AARP these days. In any case, we have money we must distribute these vaccines. I'm debating right now, I don't want to jump ahead of the line, but on the other hand, maybe setting an example. So I'm figuring out, I wonder what people think. Should I take it early or wait a while? I don't know what to do. You can argue it either way. How many people, raise your hand, think I should take it right away and do it on TV or something to encourage people? How many people think I should wait your turn? Okay, and most people don't have an opinion. Oh, okay. Anyway, thank you, Val. We will keep working to get the vaccines out there in the right way. You're 100% right.
And there's nothing we can do now to advocate the extension? No? Okay.
No, in a couple of weeks when we get a new Congress, hopefully I'll be majority leader and we'll have Biden as president. That's when it should start again.
Okay, thank you.
So you get the Christmas time off for advocating.
Thanks.
Thank you, Val. I just have a question. Jackie, you had your hand up for Harvey or for Senator Schumer?
I have one question for Senator Schumer and also a question.
Jackie, you got to talk a little louder, please.
Sure, Jackie, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now, yes.
So, Senator Schumer, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate that. My question is actually about foreign affairs. May not be totally related to community board, but I understand yourself and Speaker Pelosi are great supporters of human rights and democracy globally.
Yes.
And we are relying on you, counting on you to tell the new administration that they should give us confidence that they are going to continue to push for democracy and human rights in Asia.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I believe in it. I've been very strong for this for 25 years. We're working hard on the Uyghurs. We're working hard on Hong Kong. We're working hard in Burma, in Rihanna. It's so many different areas where human rights, and it has to become high up. And you know, people forget this. One of the reasons America has such strength is our moral strength, that the Statue of Liberty actually represents goodness in a world where there's very little. You abandon that, you lose every kind of strength that America has. So I'm with you all the way, Jackie.
Thank you so much.
Is the Statue of Liberty in your community board? No.
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 Because my middle name, my middle name is Ellis for Ellis Island, and my daughter's middle name is Emma. I'm a pro-immigration, and her name is Emma for Emma Lazarus, the poet who wrote the on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty, giving you're poor, you're tired, you're huddled masses yearning to breathe free. But I thought that was in your district, in your board. Whose board is it in?
One. PB1. It's in my district, though.
Gail knows. She just said it. It's in your district?
Yeah, it's in my district. That's CB1. Yeah. Mhm.
Got it. Okay.
Don't worry.
Oh, Yulene, I didn't see you. Hello.
Hi. And yes, it's in Gail's district too. It's all of the Manhattan borough.
And Yulene, guess what? It is in my district too. All of New York State. And Deborah. Whoa, we got a lot of celebrities here. Hi, Deborah.
Okay, it's a party. Welcome.
Deborah, get people to support our $50,000 debt forgiveness from your higher ed experience.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator, we're going to move on to our next question from May Lee. Go ahead, May.
Hi, May Lee.
Hello, Senator. Thanks for coming to our community board meeting.
Hi, May Lee.
Hi. So my question is a little about immigrants and immigration, since that's sort of what I do all the time. And this past summer, I spent some time in my day job, administering a small amount of emergency cash to, immigrants who don't have papers primarily.
Yes.
And because they couldn't get anything else, not even the $1,200, and even if they paid taxes.
Yeah,
So that was part of that previous.
We just won this fight an hour ago. In the new bill, ITINs get in, which they weren't in the old bill.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great to hear. And also, I had mentioned this before to our previous speaker who was talking about vaccines, but generally my community is not that afraid of the science for the vaccine. They just want to know when they can get it. But they are afraid of, their information being given away to. So, the governor has pushed back against it, but the federal government has to stop asking for it.
Yes, and we are trying to do that. We're leaving it up to the states. First, the vaccine is free for everybody. We don't ask for any documentation or anything else. Anyone who wants a vaccine gets a free one. So we don't want the cost to be a deterrent, because that would just bite your nose to spite your face if you want to get rid of COVID. And second, we have allowed each state to determine what the procedures are. So in New York State, they don't have to ask for information. Some of the right-wing states do, and I'd like to see federally that we prohibit it so anyone will come without fear of saying who they are. But we've gotten it so that the states that are good will be okay. One other thing I tell you, I am the leading advocate in the Congress for comprehensive immigration reform. So all of the people you serve, the day we pass this, can live in freedom, not be afraid of being deported, go home, come back, and become citizens. And that's one of my dreams if I become majority leader.
Okay, great. And now that we have a Democratic administration, hopefully the job will be easier.
Well, we don't have it yet, but in a few weeks, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our last question for you, Senator Schumer, will come from Michael Perlis. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, Michael, wherever you are. I look for the yellow square.
Hi, Senator. Thanks for joining us tonight. I just want to give a plea for state and local government funding. I was just reading that that's gone. I'm a city worker. I work for HPD, and so the people who keep our city running really need to be funding it. I know you believe that, but I just wonder if there's anything.
Yes, let me tell you what we're doing. In fact, I spoke today to some of the government state officials. The effing Republicans were against helping any state and local governments. And they tied it to this horrible corporate liability provision, which says no matter how bad your employer treats you, you couldn't sue him or her, which was despicable. So everyone came out against that. But they said, if you're not going to let that go through, we're taking out state and local government. But what I have done, I'm being a little sneaky here. I've tried to get money to the states and localities through other programs. So they will be getting some education money, which will help. They will be getting some vaccine distribution money, which will help. They will be getting hopefully over $4 billion for the MTA, mass transit, which is a federal and state function, which will help. We're trying, it looks like we're going to succeed at getting FEMA money. As you know, the city and state had to pay 25% of the FEMA, and now we would pay the 100% and pay back all the money they didn't pay. So even though they've opposed us on state and local, and that's one of Joe Biden's, I've talked to him about this, highest priorities should, God willing, he become president and I get to be majority leader, even if I don't get to be majority leader. But in the meantime, while we won't get as much as we need, we're going to do pretty well. And I spoke to Cuomo today, and he was pretty happy with how we're trying to sneak him in some dollars here, there, and everywhere.
Thank you. My main question, I know we have a lot of other things to cover, so I won't keep you too long, but I'm a student loan borrower. I have, basically a mortgage's worth of student loans. So I appreciate you fighting for this. I'm just wondering, will that forgiveness be eligible for private loans? Because I have loans with Sallie Mae, which are much more predatory and harder to pay back. They expect me to pay back, I think, like
If
11.
it's federal or federal guaranteed, you're okay. And Sallie Mae is federal guaranteed.
Great.
And by the way, you don't have to pay any taxes. There was a worry that you would have to pay taxes.
We just tax the rich.
Yes, let's hope. That's not what they do down here in Washington with Trump, but we're going to change that. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I'll try to come back.
I apologize, Senator Schumer. We do have one last speaker for you, and that is Alicia Lewis Coleman, who is our chairperson. Go ahead.
Is this a question? Is this addressed to me?
It's not a question, actually, Senator. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the many residents that represent Section 8 based housing.
Oh, yes.
I want to thank you so very much for your continued support, and just remember us as they are looking for new leadership in that division of representation. We really need it.
I just talked to Marcia Fudge today. She's the nominee. She's a congresswoman from Cleveland, Ohio. And I just talked to her today, and I mentioned public housing. I mentioned Section 8. I mentioned the need for much more money into housing. And she will be, a totally great advocate for us. She's a congresswoman from Cleveland. She represents the city of Cleveland, which has lots of public housing, lots of Section 8. So she knows all about it. And I'm really happy that she's going to be the HUD secretary.
Awesome. Thank you. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Community Board 3, and I hope to see you all soon. In the meantime, any questions, comments, things I can do, you can give me homework of any federal things that you might need to help your beautiful district. Okay, bye. Bye, Yulene.
Thank you very much, Senator Schumer. Okay, we are going to go ahead and continue with our elected officials portion with Gail Brewer. Go ahead, Gail, you have the floor.
I think she had to step away for a little minute.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we will go with Deborah Glick. Hi, Deborah, welcome.
Hi. First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season. Stay safe. And hopefully by the late spring, we can actually meet in person. I am so over the Zoom. Let me just say that the proposal for reduction and forgiveness of student loans, I think there'll be serious pushback unless we have the Senate, and we may have to push at the very least for people who have been working in public service. There was a program that Betsy DeVos completely screwed up and denied almost everybody who had worked long and hard in order to provide service, whether they were nurses or teachers, and they went and lived up to dotted every I, crossed every T in the program requirements, and 90% of people were denied the forgiveness of their loans despite their public service. So at the very least, that needs to be fully, reinstated. Where hopefully we will go back in session next week to do some things, including raising some revenue. My pied-à-terre tax would tax properties that are not primary residences, that cost over 5 million. We believe that people who want to park their money in New York because it's a good place to have their real estate dollars appreciate should pay a little bit more in their property taxes. It's like a charge on your safety deposit box. I have a bill. I hope that we see a lot more renewable energy coming along. But one thing that's a problem is that we know these major turbines have the effect of bird strikes, and particularly with raptors and particularly during migrations. But by painting one of the blades black, you can reduce bird strikes by an average of 72%. So I have a bill that would require all new and existing turbines to do this to their to one blade. We have a bill to end killing contests in New York. This is about these contests where the largest number of whoever comes in having killed the largest number of animals gets a prize. Wonderful. So we would be, I think, the 7th or 8th state to ban it. Of course, we are, while NoHo and SoHo are not directly in the major part of board, they're not in board 3, they are right adjacent to it. And some of the proposals would have a ripple effect in board 3. And so I testified at city planning that this is the wrong time to do this. And certainly many folks are also concerned about the land grab that the de Blasio administration is doing during a pandemic when there isn't, people are worried about their health, the roof over their heads, and they are doing a land grab down at Governor's Island, where all of us should be able to go and enjoy a park. So that's something that, while it's not in the district, it impacts youth sports in particular, the Harbor School, and we're, very concerned about that. And obviously, we're all devastated about Middle Church, and we've been in touch with DOB and obviously Carlina's office, and watching very closely whether or not they can save the facade. Obviously, a lot of the church is gone, and it's pretty devastating. And it's just a bad stretch. It's like, I think it was, what was it, 2015 that we had the explosion, just, a block or two away. So it's terrible, but we will do everything we can to help the church rebuild. I've tweeted out their donation page. I've made a contribution and will continue to try to raise some money for that too. And again, best wishes to everybody. Stay safe. We hope to be in January. We will be back in Albany, and we have a very full agenda. I think we have sent some a written list of our priorities, and we just hope that everyone will take the vaccine. I know there are some people who are philosophically opposed to vaccines, but I grew up during the polio scare. And the reason we don't have polio in this country is because we have vaccines. And the reason we do have measles outbreaks, even though there is a vaccine, is because people don't take it. So I don't, if you have a medical condition that is contraindicated, it's one thing, but people have to do for the greater good. And I don't know when this country sort of lost the notion that public health and the greater good is an important value. And it may be my turn ahead of some of you because I'm a senior. So, but wish you all the very best. Stay safe and have as good a holiday as you possibly can under these circumstances. Be well.
Thank you, Deborah. We do have one question for you from Michelle Cooper-Smith.
Thanks, Larissa. Thank you for being here, Assemblymember Glick. I have one question. Do you have any proof that there will be a quote ripple effect from the Soho, NoHo potential rezoning, which, by the way, there's no defined proposal for in Board 3. I've heard that a lot. I'm curious if there's any actual proof that will be true.
Well, I think we have seen in every rezoning, first of all, the immediate area that's impacted finds that there is displacement because of the pressures that are put on. This is a proposal that has largely been put forward by the real estate interests and the pressures that are placed on adjacent communities. You know, it's demonstrable what's happened, you know, prior to the pandemic. Areas in places like Greenpoint and Williamsburg that became a hot neighborhood, and where zoning changes were allowed, there were people who could no longer stay in Bushwick, which was next door. So I think we have seen that in other places. It would be a big surprise to me. It may not be immediate, and frankly, the affordable housing is dependent on getting luxury housing. And at the moment, there's a bit of a glut on the market when it comes to luxury housing. So this notion that by allowing for higher, greater heights, and more luxury development is the only way. I mean, we found this in Board 2. We agreed to, we wanted a mixed income. We agreed to a ULURP. It was changing the zoning. And in the end, at the 11th hour, there was a technical amendment that they were allowed to utilize. And in the end, the middle income and low income affordable housing and the luxury housing that was linked to that, you know, disappeared, and we got commercial development. So, you know, I don't know how many times we have to have the bait and switch, but
yeah. I'll just say that Soho is very different from Greenpoint and Williamsburg because I can't afford to live in Soho, and I doubt that anyone on this call probably can. And so I'm not concerned about quote unquote displacing rich people who live there already because the rents are insane.
There are many people who live there who maybe aren't moving in now, but have lived there for a long time. There's, you know, no protections that were discussed during the Soho NoHo envisioning that are not a part of the proposal that's been put forward. And so there are people who are sort of average folks and folks who are artists who are very concerned. So
I understand,
hear
but they
you.
own
I
co-ops
couldn't
that
afford
which are
to live
very
in the neighborhood
expensive.
there either.
So I'll just leave it at that. You know, like having that asset makes you more privileged than most people. So I'll just leave it at that. And I ask you to consider supporting a proposal that would have more residential housing in it that's affordable, because right now the proposal I think prioritizes commercial development, which I agree is not the right place. So thank you for your points, and I hope you support something like that.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Michelle, for your question. We are going to move on to our next elected, Yuleen New. Thank you for coming. Welcome.
Yay. Hi, everyone. I'm just really glad I could be here today with everyone, even though I wish that we were actually together in our either too cold or too hot student auditorium. So I miss everyone very much. I especially miss Linda Jones and our soccer discussions. So just wanted to put that out there. I probably gave away our secret. But thank you so much, especially to all of the folks here that have been doing so much work on the ground. I want to say, and especially, point out that we have so many folks like Eric Diaz and Aura and Trevor and Felicia Cruikshank and, just like half of the people here have literally been outside and risking everything while helping out the community on the food stuff, on just distributing masks, helping me with the distribution of PPEs and food. And we've been doing so many different things at the same time, but that has been it's been really awesome to see, because we've seen that, the federal government has failed us, the state government has failed us, the city government has failed us. It's austerity budget after austerity budget after austerity budget. And it's really amazing that our neighbors are the ones who are not failing us. It's our neighbors that are picking up the slack and helping each other out. And that I can't even say how much that means to me, and how amazing it is to see, the city programs that have come out on food. I wish they were better. I wish that they were, actually helping us to, we should be doing an extended SNAP. We should be making it so that there's, taking the asset limits off the SNAP, helping people to actually have cash to use, to spend, to, help our small businesses, for example. There's just so many different things that we could be doing, instead of doing these new wheels of programming that is helping, big corporations to have big giant contracts with, the result being applesauce and cookies and cereal and things that our seniors can't eat. So there's a lot of things I wish I could discuss with folks, but I know that I'm on limited time, and I just wanted to say thank you to the folks who are helping us to deliver nutritious and delicious hot meals, and making it so that we have culturally appropriate food, and helping us to, on the ground, help mobilize a lot of the mutual aid that's been going on within our neighborhood. So thank you so much. I can't do any of it without you. This CB has been like the heart and soul too of a lot of it. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Our district obviously was hit really, really hard, our small businesses especially. So I wanted to say thank you to Brian Kavanaugh for actually being the co-sponsor on the Senate side of one of the bills that we're working on together, which helps us to mitigate some of the rent for our small businesses. It's called the Recovery Lease bill. We're trying to make sure that there's a recovery lease program that will help to eliminate some of the property taxes in lieu of making it so that small business can have different leases, and then be able to handle some of the pressures a little bit easier. And so there's a little bit more of a tightness to how we can operate and help out there. I also have a bill right now that is in discussion on rent, as we know, and I think that our small landlords need a lot of help here. And so my bill is the only one with a fund that is created to help to fully fund our small landlords and get their repayment back. And I know that this is something that, my speaker and I are still talking about. There's a lot of folks who are in agreement and disagreement, but I think that, it's really important that there's rent forgiveness, because we have also been talking about right now in discussion on this day, there's folks talking about the eviction moratorium, because we just really can't, we can't risk people, being kicked out of their homes right now, because, housing is healthcare as we know it, as we know right now, and folks are having a hard time. And when the state is requiring for folks to stay home, we need to make sure that they have homes to stay in. So there's a lot of things that the state should be doing to make it possible for people to have homes to stay in, and that should be part of what we're doing to help to navigate this pandemic. And so that's my firm belief. But of course, there's a lot of technical difficulties when it comes to putting together the actual language to make sure that folks can stay in their homes. Right now, I think that folks are gearing towards making sure that folks have some kind of relief there on that end. The other thing that I wanted to discuss was obviously the thing that's on a lot of folks' minds, which is revenue. And we are talking a lot to folks about raising revenue. And I have a bill. I know that Deborah's got a bill. You know, a lot of people got a bill. Her bill is an amazing bill, the pied-à-terre tax. It almost passed, but there's a lot of folks with a lot of pushback on it, and I think that just makes a lot of sense. If you can own a second property, we should be able to tax it. I think that, you know, I have a bill that's very, very simple. I think that it's one that makes a lot of sense. It's called the stock buyback transfer tax, and it makes it so that, you know, it doesn't affect anybody like, or any real person ever. What it affects is basically, you know, corporations who have been given so much money from the taxes that Trump didn't collect from them, and literally are buying back their own stock, right? And this like temporarily manipulates the market, which makes it, like, back in the 70s illegal. Actually, this is a legal thing for corporations to buy back their own stock. And so we're just taxing it, not even a percent, we're taxing 0.5%. And we hope that that's something that can pass, because it's so basic. And even when I went out to go and buy this hand sanitizer at Trader Joe's, hello, this is the lemon scented one, it is actually 8% sales tax. So when we buy stuff, it costs 8% sales tax. And yet when they buy back their own stock, which helps them in the long run, they are not charged even a percent of tax. So we would like to make sure that we are charging a 0.5% tax. Yeah, that is my favorite hand sanitizer too. But yeah, we're charging a 0.5% tax to make sure that we can collect that. And we anticipate that bill on, you know, hopefully, if it passes, can raise several $billion, and which is much needed revenue as we know it. So we are facing this year an $8 billion deficit from this fiscal year. And then we know that we're going to be facing about $17 billion next fiscal year. And so this is why we need to make sure that we are actually helping to raise some of that money. And I know that Chuck was on, and this is why I kept on typing in big bold letters, like, give this money. It's so important that we are actually getting that revenue. And we can't not ask for the federal government to help, because this is, you know, this is something that, you know, they can literally just give to us. And I think that that's something that's so important. New York is already $50 billion in debt between state and local governments. So let that sink in for a second. And then, you know, I hope that folks understand how important it is that we are not passing austerity budgets, but investing in our communities and making sure that we can actually weather this storm. In my opinion, if we were already investing in our social services, investing in our safety net, investing in the things that, you know, our education system, in our healthcare, then we would not be in this state right now that we are in. I think that we would be in a much better place. We would be able to actually bear the cost of recovery. The more that we do not invest in our communities, the more that the cost of recovery will be. And so I just wanted to put that there, and I'll take any questions. And I see a lot of hands, so here I am.
Okay, thank you, Yulene. Thanks for taking questions. The first hand that we saw go up was Kay Webster.
Oh,
Kay,
my girl. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Yulene. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Your hair is so long.
Because I can't get a haircut. So thank you, because that was a good list. I wanted to just, and it really is the same question to all our state representatives, about the health equity bill that Assemblymember Gottfried and Senator Rivera have put forward, that a lot of us have been advocating for, to ensure no hospital downsizing, sales to transfers of ownership, you know the drill, of nursing home or hospitals, so that they would have to pass a health equity, they would have to do a study of the health equity impact of any of that, which might have prevented some things from happening here. It also is going to finally give us one more consumer rep on the Public Health and Health Planning Council. So I'm assuming that most people on here would co-sponsor, but I wanted to just put it out there. And I do want to say that even though I do a lot of fighting about certain housing things in community board too, it is true that not everybody there is wealthy. So I just want to say that. And we can disagree about a lot of things, but it's also not this board. So, but anyway, on the health equity thing, any thoughts you have on that?
I am a huge supporter, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that there were a couple of things in that bill that you noted that would have been preventative of some of the things that happen here. I helped to add in some of our language from the Rivington Act, as you probably noted. And then I think that, you know, it is a very good piece of legislation. It is something that I'm very supportive of, and that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about what we should have been investing in our communities. That is one of the biggest examples. We should not be cutting healthcare during a global pandemic. We should be investing in it, and we should be investing in our communities during a global pandemic. We should be making sure that social services like our settlement houses right now are NORCs. They should be getting extra money. They shouldn't be getting cuts. They should be getting extra money. The 20% cuts and the stoppage of payments of already doled out RFPs has been super damaging to our communities. And I can't even make sense of some of the things that people are doing, because it doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. They should be funding Eric Diaz's program. They should be making sure that, you know, all of our social services can actually expand their programs into delivery, for example, of our meals. Like, all of the settlement houses already knew exactly what kind of meals were culturally appropriate, were nutritious, were actually helping people to get healthy, and like those were the things. Like, they were already conscious. They already knew each person. Like, why is it that we couldn't just help them with expanding their program, and instead we had to go and take money, put it into another thing, go get contracts from another crazy entity outside of us, and then nobody's getting helped, really, because then there's applesauce all over our streets. I know you guys see them.
Amen. You're going to be a preacher when you finish this job.
We'll have to talk to Pastor Mark.
Okay, so we're going to take 3 questions in this order: Michelle, then Jackie, then Mei Lee.
Thanks, Larissa, and sorry to everyone who's probably tired of hearing from me tonight, but we have a unique opportunity to ask our elected officials questions, so I will take that opportunity. Thank you, Yuleen, for being here tonight. And my question to you, similar to Kay's, is for all of our elected officials, which is, we have opportunities to raise revenue. I see the billionaire tax, I see your stock buyback bill, I see a pied-à-terre tax, legalizing marijuana, and reforming property taxes so it no longer advantages co-ops, condos, and single-family homes. The Democrats now have a supermajority in both the House and the Senate. What are we waiting for? We no longer have to play ball with Cuomo, and all I'm seeing is that we're waiting for Cuomo. So can you explain to me what the plan is going forward and how we will do these things and other, I'm sure, ideas that I have not listed? Thank you.
Just first off, I'm majorly in support of all of those things. As you know, I've been one of the biggest proponents of raising revenue. I also want to remind everyone that we're still currently not in the legislative year that the new members will be joining us in yet. So you have to remember that it's still the legislators who are sitting that are actually making any decisions until January 5th. So when the new members are inaugurated, and then that is technically when we have a supermajority, just to remind everyone, on both houses. And then, of course, we need to raise revenue now, or else we are not going to capture the fiscal year. And so I think that that's another issue. And so that's where I think that we will be called in, but I don't know, right? Like, we don't know until we're called in whether or not we're going to be called in. And so, yeah, there's that. But I think that the holdup has definitely been one that I'm very frustrated by. So I hear you on that. I think that I'm very startled that we haven't been called back. We thought that we were going to be called back in July, and then we thought that we were going to get called back in August, and then we thought that we were going to get called back in October, and then it was like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, and then it's like, well, what? You know, so I have gotten very frustrated. Oh my gosh, I hear Eric's baby.
Sorry.
No, it's so cute. I love her so much. But yeah, I'm very frustrated that we haven't been called back, and I think that it's really important that we do those revenue raisers. But there is also a bigger ask right now that is happening because of the fact that we have a duty as a legislature to balance our budget, and if we are in a deficit, then we're not passing a balanced budget. So that is one of the things that I'm really worried about. So thank you for asking that, because it's definitely the same issues that I have right now. I just got off the phone with my speaker earlier today, and asking him that exact question, like, when are we going back for revenue? I thought we had to go back this week or we couldn't capture the fiscal year. And I think that he said that well, it just has to be within the year before the legislature is inaugurated and other legislatures inaugurated. So.
Okay, Jackie.
Hi, Yulene.
Hi, Jackie.
How are you?
Good to see you, because
Good.
we only see each other when we're buying baked goods. You see, I'm getting chubby. It's all the carbs.
Me too. Look at myself. So I want to thank you for your effort to extend the moratorium to help the struggling tenants. That's really nice. But as you are aware of, many nonprofit housing providers, small property owners are also unable to pay their mortgages to finance their operations because they lost their rental income due to the moratorium itself. And you said you have a plan for it, and I think it would be really nice if you can share the details of the plan. And also, I'm just wondering if the plan would be in place at the same time with the moratorium.
Yeah.
And also, a final question is that would you support something like rent subsidy in the state level, as Senator Schumer just discussed it a little bit earlier? And I understand Senator Kavanaugh did a rent subsidy in the summer. That was really nice. I mean, that we have a lot of rooms to improve that plan, that policy, but that was something really helpful to the New Yorkers. However, I think some of the money are still not, I don't know, but like the last update I had was that some of the money are still sitting in the government. Maybe Senator Kavanaugh can update that later as well. Thank you.
Yeah, well, actually, the majority of the money, it's $60 million is still sitting there out of the 100 million. And I think that they do have to change some rules and the way that it's being doled out, or else we lose the money, which is very worrisome. And I think that the governor just is announcing something maybe later today. I don't even know. I think he was announcing something today.
It's announced.
Yeah, or it just got announced. I guess we were on
yeah, 15 minutes ago or something.
15 minutes ago, it was just announced. So there's going to be some changes to that program to make sure that that program is doled out. So sorry, I was speaking, so I didn't get to see my Twitter. But I definitely, I agree with you, Jackie, on the front that there are certain things that are very, very dire, especially when it comes to the properties. So one of the things that folks are now considering within the eviction moratorium bill is that the look at tax liens to be able to help to mitigate that. And I know that was an ask from our our nonprofit organizations to help with that. So like I think that is something that is on the table and being discussed. I personally am not within those discussions because that now it's a negotiation between like the leader and the speaker and the governor. And so right now that's going on, but I know that was mentioned within our conference multiple times and something that we are very, very conscious of. And we want to make sure that people can actually have some relief there on when it comes to tax liens. My plan is obviously the plan to make sure that our small businesses get paid back 100% by our state when it comes, small landlords are paid back 100% by the state. And that includes like for co-ops and, some of our nonprofit organizations. And so this is something that is really, really important to say because we are looking at creating a fund, one that, when Chuck Schumer does give us some of that money, it could go directly into that fund, and that fund will make it so that we can actually pay back fully our small landlords and our co-ops, et cetera. I think that it's really, really important. People know it as, the title of it doesn't really talk about all of the programming within it, right? So people know it as the cancel rent bill, but it's about rent forgiveness, but also to make sure that small landlords are made whole, right? And I think that people don't realize that I actually worked with so many of our small landlords to make this bill possible. And that was one of the biggest things that we were worried about. And we felt like it was so important that folks actually understood that this program, and it also is one of my biggest concerns, which I didn't even get to talk about a lot, but we had a public hearing on NYCHA blueprint in the State Assembly. And this is something that has me very, very concerned, because I'm very not supportive of privatization of our public housing. I think that the NYCHA blueprint will effectively eliminate public housing as we know it. And so we lose public housing as we know it. And I think that that's really frightening, and something that is really not something that I could support. But at the same time, I think that we know that, we need to fund public housing, right? And so how do we do that? We have to raise that. And we also have to make sure that we get federal dollars for that as well. So there's a lot of different things. NEDIA has a bill that fully funds public housing, by the way. We should make sure that we on the ground are supporting it. And it's also included in the Green New Deal, as folks probably know. And it is something that we need to do. And to go back to what you were saying, in my bill, we also do make sure that NYCHA's rent is also included within that rent forgiveness. So the government is also paying back themselves. So just wanted to put that out there. It's a very important piece of legislation. And I know that it will be changed a lot as we are having these discussions now. I've been in conversations with my speaker. There's a couple of different things that I think need to have discussion on. One of them being the mortgage cancellation piece of the bill. We wanted to make sure that small homeowners were also included, right? But I think that there are sometimes this is true, but there is a difference between state mortgages and federal mortgages, right? And so like on the federal level, there is I have precedence on this because I worked on it, but during the subprime lending crisis, we were able to make sure that all of the mediation that had to happen with federal banks still happened on the state level. That was a state level piece of legislation, and the mediation was still with the federal banks, and it actually was constitutional because it had to deal with the debt. And so I think that we can do it dealing with debt and where the debt is located, which is here in New York. So there's a lot of different ways that we can discuss it, but I think that there will be some changes, but it's one of the things that has a moving piece to it. So just wanted to give you all of the information and be very transparent about it.
Thank you, Yulin.
Yeah.
Okay, Mei Lee, you have a question?
Oh, you're echoing, May.
Okay, now I'm not echoing, right?
Yeah, you have a lot of doohickeys going on.
Yes, I do. So I just have a quick question, and I'll be quick because it's very late, and you don't have to give me a very long answer. We can talk more about it later, but it's about health insurance and COVID-19.
Yeah.
So, some people can get Medicaid, and I guess if you have COVID-19, it can be covered by emergency Medicaid, especially if you're undocumented. But, not everybody is that. Like, I'm talking about immigrants in particular who need health insurance, and everyone needs to have health insurance now. So, if they make a little bit more than the guideline for Medicaid, it's another level plan, but they're not eligible for it, but they really need it. So there was a bill, there has been a bill to allow them to have coverage too. And I'm wondering if you're aware of it, and I think you would support it. But whether or not you are aware of it.
I believe that's Carmen De La Rosa's bill, correct?
Well, she might be one of the sponsors, but the main sponsor is Assemblymember Gottlieb.
Yeah, Gottfried, yeah. I think that she's, Gottfried, and I think Senator Rivera, and then I think the co-sponsor was Jessica Ramos, right? I think, Brian, Jessica Ramos, and then Carmen De La Rosa on our side. So they're kind of like the pushers, while the chairs of the healthcare committees have both sponsored the bill. I'm very much in support, and I think that it's really important.
Okay.
Thank you, May. And I don't want to take up too much time. I just saw Lee's text on there in the chat, and I realized that everybody has so many things to say. But thank you so much for having me. If there's any other questions, always feel free to reach out. I'm going to put it into the chat again, my email, but anybody can reach out and call me. I know that a lot of people have my cell phone number.
Next year for soccer.
Yes.
Thank you, Elaine, very much.
Gail's
back with us. So Gail, you have the floor.
Thank you. I know you're tired and I'll be very quick. I don't know how you're surviving. I want to thank Susan because we've been working with her on the issue of the bicycles who are congregating because the delivery people need a place to be able to set up a bike corral. And so just thank you, Susan, because these are, if you can do this, then I think other community boards can use it as an example. So thank you very much. Number two, you have a lot of Catholic in particular, but I'm sure other, this is a borough-wide issue of religious institutions that are not continuing to be institutions. And it's really hard because I want them to stay as their beautiful buildings, or I want them not to be condos. And so just so you know, without getting into the specifics, we've been working with the Catholic Archdiocese, and now we're going to work with the Catholic Charity. They are two different entities. And see, I know we were very disappointed that one of them went to condos, but we are going to push for 300 or 400 units on one of the other churches that is no longer acting as a religious institution. And we're not giving up on other requests that have come in, just so you know that's happening. Third, the helicopter task force. We had a meeting with all of FAA and different entities from the Eastern Helicopter Association, companies, people who are interested in this topic. And it was really interesting to me because I could not figure out, we had data analysis of all the 311 calls. I'm like, there are no tourists. Who in the world is in this helicopter? Well, it turns out, and I don't mean to disparage any age group, but it's young people taking a bus, I think sometime paid for by the helicopter company, going to New Jersey, getting on a helicopter, coming back to Manhattan and hovering to take photographs. I don't know if it's Instagram, I don't know if it's social media, I don't know what is the incentive, but that's what's happening. And the good news is Mr. Cohen, who is a council member for Hoboken, he too is very, very frustrated by this. So New Jersey and New York in 2021 are gonna work together to stop this insanity. It's disturbing people in parks. There's obviously an issue in terms of health, in terms of the carbon, et cetera, et cetera. So just so you know, we made a lot of progress, although it's not over yet. We are testifying on tomorrow of the City Council on supporting composting. I think that Ward 3 has more fabulous, fabulous composting community gardens than any other part of Manhattan, and I know that you care about that. We're also interested in this public well proposal. You'll get a copy of a letter that we just wrote to the mayor. Public realm is public space, and we need somebody to coordinate. I counted 24 agencies that work on your sidewalks and your streets. And with the addition of the fabulous outdoor restaurants, and I feel like, thank God for you, and I feel so terrible about the roof or the not roof on the outdoor and the indoor, it's, leave that alone. That needs all of that, plus just bike lanes, bus lanes, drop-offs, everything needs coordination. So we just put together, I think it's a fairly comprehensive proposal, and we'd love to have your support. I know Board 5 passed the resolution in support last night, I think. We're also all concerned about budget, and so we had, our money is capital primarily. The proposal will be due in February. It's on our website, February 21st. We just had a discussion, Zoom, on how you apply it if you're a school or a public entity like a park, or if you are a cultural or nonprofit. All of that is on our website. It took place, but the information is there, and you might want to look at it because we want people to apply. Even though we don't have gazillion dollars, we try to make sure that everybody gets at least something. We work with the City Council. As you know, community board applications are due February 1st. I think you know that. And also tomorrow, Monday, December 21st, with Columbia University at 6:30 p.m. There's a Zoom with us as a moderator and many other supporter and co-sponsors of Vaccine Town Hall. I just want to talk about the schools as I always do, because it's beyond frustrating. So there's a device discussion. But just to say, I don't know how much is anecdotal and I don't know how much is data driven. Now the city council did just pass, I think yesterday, a data, or even today, a data driven bill. What is the status of the devices? What is the status of the internet? Because we're calling almost all the schools in Manhattan. And what we're finding is there is no data and whatever it is does not exist correctly. So sometimes there's a broken, nobody to repair device. Sometimes the internet is not strong enough. You can imagine. And worse, we have our money slowly moving out, $15 million from last year's budget just for technology in the schools, and it's still sitting there in whole. So there's a real challenge in terms of the Department of Education, OMB, and School Construction Authority in terms of really dealing with the fact that these devices don't work and they are not accounted for. I want to just mention one other funding issue, which is that the fund for the City of New York, again, this information is on our website. They have a great deal of money right now for Cultural Arts Capital Fund. And I want to make sure, because there are so many great cultural organizations in Community Board 3, I want to make sure that you apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. I appreciate your time and your patience this evening. We also have Senator Brian Kavanaugh with us.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead. You're
great. Thank you very much. So I know you've had a long, very productive meeting, but lots of elected officials talking at you. I was happy to see, all of you get so many of your great questions from Senator Schumer answered earlier. Some of this ground has been covered by especially some of my state colleagues, but just briefly, we are still negotiating about whether to go back to session now or back early in the new year. Either way, generating new revenue is critical. I think all of the electeds who have spoken tonight have expressed support for that, and I join them. And there are various mechanisms, but we've talked about a bunch of them today. I won't go through them again. On the other big topic for the short term is evictions and housing. As Eileen mentioned, the governor announced, I think, during this meeting, that there is an extension of the Emergency Rent Relief Act. This is the program we passed earlier. It put $100 million toward rent relief. The details are still being sorted out, but roughly speaking, it's they're going to reopen the application process beginning tomorrow through February 1st, and they are going to loosen some of the eligibility requirements. But it's still a very, very limited program. It is not going to deal with the bulk of the need here. And so two things that means. First is I'll talk about the sort of longer term rent issue in a second, but the big thing is to get an eviction moratorium in place. So we had, many of us had advocated from the very beginning for what I call a blanket moratorium. That seems to have become sort of the term of art for this, but where residential evictions are prohibited. They were so prohibited entirely in New York State, statewide, through September 30th, through a combination of executive orders and administrative orders. Since then, the governor has allowed the sort of full, blanket moratorium to lapse. There are still many restrictions on residential evictions, including the Tenant Safe Harbor Act and some executive order that we passed earlier in the summer. But there are evictions beginning, and we've had the first eviction that we're aware of in New York City on November 24th. There have been evictions since October in many other parts of the state. So we are really, I've had legislation to reinstate a complete moratorium legislatively. I have another colleague, Zelma Myrie, who has a bill, and there are assembly sponsors for each of those bills. We're negotiating this right now, and we're trying to push for a comprehensive moratorium. The governor's current kind of structure ends January 1st. I think we have reason to expect that he would extend that. But again, if it remains incomplete, you're going to see the rate at which people are evicted accelerating. To some extent, it's been slow so far because the courts are really backed up. But this is not a time to be evicting anybody from their home on public health grounds, even putting aside the economic hardship. The longer term thing, Senator Schumer mentioned, there's $25 billion in this federal stimulus package that is moving toward passage. I don't think, we have guarantee that that money's coming yet, but it's looking promising. We had called for $100 billion nationally in March and April, and I joined a coalition I helped put together of 200 people who, elected officials and community organizations that supported that. The House had originally passed that in something called the HEROES Act, but $25 billion will get us a very long way toward addressing the arrears. We estimate that about 800,000 to 1.2 million tenants statewide, that's households, are in arrears for possibly about $2.5 or $3.5 billion of unpaid rent statewide. New York would, if we got a decent fraction of that $25 billion, we could go a long way. I had introduced legislation, again, back in March that we've been updating several times, that is intended to allow us to be ready to spend that money on a large scale. And this program, my name was on the bill, the Emergency Rent Relief Act, but it is very limited. It's very limited. So we really are hoping to be ready there. I know time is limited, just super quickly. We're working with all of our elected colleagues who represent 174 Forsyth Street, including particularly Nidia Velasquez's office has been helpful. It's a HUD building. There's been a lot of problems there. We're working on addressing them and I think making some progress. We had a good meeting with outgoing HUD Regional Administrator Lynn Patton and the management of the building, and there's progress. Gail mentioned the council's having their hearing on composting tomorrow. I have joined everybody in pushing for the Lower East Side Ecology Center's compost yard to be remain in the neighborhood, to be reinstated eventually when ESCR is done. We have some assurance that won't happen between the 31st, before the new year, but obviously we need, that's coming around fast. We need to ensure that remains in our community. I have a few other things I could say, but I know it's very late, so I will end there. Happy to take questions if people have them.
Okay, thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Do we have any questions for the senator? Okay, no questions.
Thank you all.
For you, but we do have one question, and thank you for your time. We do have one call from Trevor Howard.
I'll be quick, Gail.
Apologize.
Yeah,
Gail.
Thank you. It's about the helicopters. They actually come up the two bridges and turn the Manhattan Bridge. So I see those things at my window every single day. Residents really didn't know how to complain because it's a helicopter, but it is a form of pollution. So we thank you for that work. We just asked for you to keep the residents in this area informed. I know there's a task force, but we'd like a little bit more information on what we can do. That's all I wanted to say, and just thank you.
We will definitely update you. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go down the list for the electeds to see if anyone else is here from the offices. We haven't heard from Congress member Nidia Velasquez's office. Do we have a representative? Okay, do we have a representative from Congress member Carolyn Maloney's office?
Yes, Victor.
Great. Hi, Victor. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, author of the Corporate Transparency Act, a must-pass bill that is expected on the House floor, is coming in this week. The Corporate Transparency Act would require companies to disclose their true beneficial owners at the time the company is formed to prevent bad actors from using anonymous shell companies to thwart law enforcement and hide their illicit activities. Quote, the Corporate Transparency Act is the most important anti-money laundering and anti-corruption bill in 20 years, and it will make our country substantially safer, said Congresswoman Maloney. Anonymous shell companies have become the vehicle of choice for terrorist financing, money laundering, and organized crime. And unfortunately, the US is one of the easiest places in the world to set up these shell companies. The Corporate Transparency Act solves this by requiring companies to disclose their true beneficial owners at the time the company is formed. This will make it harder for terrorist criminals to finance their operations and move their money. And this will ultimately make the US and the world a safer place. said Congresswoman Maloney. The Congresswoman wishes the members of the board and the community a safe and festive holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Okay, is there anyone from Senator Brad Hoylman's office here?
Yes, Caroline's here.
Hi, Caroline, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties earlier. Happy holidays, everyone. I'm going to keep it very short. I'm going to drop our board report in the chat box. So if you have any questions, I hope you'll email me. I will include my email in the chat. And the one thing I was going to mention that's not in our board report, Senator Kavanaugh and Assemblymember New already talked about. It's about the rent relief program and the expansion, and that was late breaking news, so it didn't make it in. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Do we have any questions? Okay, I see no hands up, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next elected official. Is there anyone from Councilmember Margaret Chen's office present? Okay, and last but not least, Councilmember Carolina Rivera.
Hi, yes.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Isabel Chandler. I'm speaking on behalf of Councilmember Carolina Rivera. I will be very brief. This was, I think, a wonderful opportunity to hear from so many, but a few updates from our office and team. We are on almost the end of our toy drive collection for local children in the community. If you have anything to drop off, you can do so at our office on 254 East 4th Street up until tomorrow at the end of the day. Councilmember Rivera also held a hearing as chair of the City Council Committee on Hospitals on vaccines, and really primarily focused on how vaccinations are going to be distributed equitably, and how information about the vaccine, as we heard earlier this evening, will be shared. We also, as was previously mentioned, joined the Save Our Compost NYC virtual press conference, and Carolina spoke in support of composting programs, as well as calling again for a concrete plan for the LES Ecology Center to be permanently included. We also we're very excited to celebrate the passing of the walking while trans ban resolution in City Council, and are really hopeful that this really critical piece of legislation can also be passed in the state now. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will drop my information in the chat, and feel free to reach out.
Great, thank you for your report. Do we have any questions for Carolina's office? Okay, none. I would like to thank all the elected officials for joining us this evening. And we're going to move on to roll call and approval of the minutes for October of 2020. Michelle?
Thank you. Okay, David Adams.
Hello, here.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask everyone if you could just unmute yourself when you know you're about to be called. That would be great. Thank you.
It was a surprise if you're the first one.
Oh, you're always my first, so thank you.
Yeah, it's always a surprise.
Yaron Altman. Okay. Jesse Beck.
Yes.
Dominic Berg. Lee Berman.
Yes.
Thank you. Harlan Chan.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu. David Crane.
Yes.
Thank you. Felicia Cruikshank.
Yes.
Thank you. Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Alastair Economakis. Alastair, I see that you're on. Okay, I'll come back to Alastair. Shirley Fennessy.
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan Gillum.
Yes.
Deborah Glass.
Yes.
Thank you. Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Herman Hewitt.
Yes.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Valentina Jones.
Yes.
Tatiana Jorio.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan.
Yes.
Olympia Kazi. Joseph Kearns. Michelle Coopersmith. Yes. Mei Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate your unmuting early. I see you. Wendy Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Yes.
Thank you. David Louie.
Yes.
Ellen Liu.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes.
Alex Militano.
Yes.
Michael Perlis.
Yes.
Tariq Ramos.
Yes.
Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Damaris Reyes. Richard Ropiak. Richard, I know you're on. Okay, I'll come back to Richard. Rob,
He put his thumb.
you put thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Thomas Rosa.
Yes.
Robin Chattel.
There it was. Sorry.
No, you're good. I got you, Richard. Robin is absent. Heidi Schmidt.
Yes.
Larissa Shainberg.
Yes.
Clint Smeltzer.
Yes.
Anisha Stephen.
Yes.
Sandra Strother. Josephine Velez.
Yes.
Thank you. Troy Velez.
Yes.
Rodney Washington.
Yes.
Kathleen Webster.
Yes.
Jackie Wong.
Yes.
Ricky Wong.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna give Alistair another chance if he's still on. Alistair is on. Does anyone see him making a? Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, we are moving right along this evening. We are up to our board reports. I'd like to start with the chair's report. Alicia, go ahead. You have the floor.
Hi, Larissa, and thank you so much for your hosting this evening. Good evening, board members, elected officials, guests, public members, and full board members to our last full board meeting of the year. Goodbye, 2020, and happy holiday season to all. And what a year it's been, right? And so can honestly say I have great expectations of what the new year has in store for us. High hopes and for the fast approaching new year 2021. So this year, some of the things that we're going to be working on is the upcoming committees will start planning for the new year ahead, goals and what we've learned from COVID and what expectations we have ahead for 2021. And so I look forward to seeing all of you in attendance at your committee meetings. Whether you are a full board member or a public member, we encourage you to please continue to attend your meetings. All of you know that there has been a fire. We've talked about it. Please continue to send your support on behalf of the community board to Reverend Dr. Lewis and the Middle Collegiate Family, and the Women's Prison Association. They are seeking monetary gifts at this time, and whatever you can provide, it will be most helpful. You can find it on our social media page as well as our community board page. The Arts and Cultural Subcommittee is undergoing some reconstruction. Carolyn Radcliffe is no longer chairing the subcommittee, and we are seeking new membership. So if you are interested in arts and culture, or you have a background in arts and culture, we encourage you to please come on board and apply if you want to be a public member or you want to be a full board member of that subcommittee. Anisha and I will be looking at applicants relatively soon and working towards the redevelopment of the subcommittee. As well as the Landmark Committee, they are looking for some new full board members for the Landmark Committee. Please let Linda Jones know if you are interested in serving on that Landmarks Committee. We have some vacancies on the cabs and the advisory. So if you're looking for some new opportunities to do more on the community board, we encourage you to please let your chairs of your committees know that you are interested in some more leadership roles, as I know that many of you are eager to do more, right? I hope so. And also there's an opportunity for people to apply for the community board. So please make sure you apply for the community board. The applications are due February 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And you can find the applications on the Manhattan Borough President's website, as well as the Community Board 3 website. And at this time, I'd like to invite Larissa to share about our holiday gathering on this Sunday.
Thank you, Alicia. Okay, well, unfortunately, we will not be in person this year. I'm very sad about not seeing everybody's shiny, happy faces and their ugly sweaters for the holiday party. First of all, we do have some fun events planned for our Zoom holiday party. I'm sure you guys have all gotten the invitation. If you have not, please reach out to me in the chat or an email, and I'll make sure to send the invitation to you for the Zoom. Look out for a few other emails from me. I'm still looking for talent. We've got several people who've stepped up with some really fun ideas, but we can always enjoy some more. The party is open to all appointed board members, all appointed community members, elected officials, and our staff, our wonderful office staff. You will also be seeing a little cocktail suggestion coming out from me. We're going to have a little cocktail contest for the most creative, most holiday festive, and the most attractive. I'll put it that way. So put your thinking caps on and bring your creativity, bring your ugly sweaters, and most of all, bring your holiday cheer. It will be this Sunday on the 20th from 6:30 to 9:30. Okay. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, Larissa. And I hope to see everyone there. And I'd also like to see you all at the next full board meeting in the new year, January 26th at 6:30. So that concludes the board chair's report. I now open up to the district manager's report. Susan?
Thank you. I'll be brief. As just some details on the church fire, we are getting reports from DOB at least twice a week. Right now, looks like they can definitely save the Liberty Bell, and this looks like the steeple and the frame for the steeple is either it's either okay or can be restored. We will keep that. The nave was demolished. They've been demolishing that this week. The facade is still to be determined. And I know they've been working with Landmarks, and elected officials have been working with DOB also, and been very, very clear about preservation of as much as possible. The Hopper House, someone may have said that before, I'm not sure. This is where the Women's Prison Association is, suffered smoke and water damage. But that building is also over 100 years old. The church is 130. The Hopper House is over 100. That one will be saved. And as Alicia said, the links to donate are on our Twitter and our Facebook, not on our community board website, but on our Twitter and our Facebook. What else I was going to say? Oh, Charis. Many people know that there was a fire there the other night. It turned out to be garbage, but it was within where people are supposed to be allowed at the building. Department of Buildings is, I don't know exactly what this means, but they're having internal discussions about it. So at least they're paying attention, and I will keep you updated on that. But I want to ask people, please, please, when you're emailing everybody about the fire, please call 311, because then, people will ask me to follow up. It has to be a police response. DOB, I tried to get them to respond. They're not allowed to respond. It's not their jurisdiction. So don't just call the NCOs, because then there's no record and nothing to follow up on. So you can call all those people, but also please call 311. And I just want to say, in COVID, even though most of our community board is not as severe as the worst places in New York City, we are increasing. After Thanksgiving, I think 1,909 went up 2.5% in 1 week, and the others went up almost as much. City is, we're meeting with test and trace every other week. Again, I'll report back on that. But I don't know what else is. I'm just reporting on how severe it is, which we all know. And that's it, unless there's questions.
Do we have any questions from any members for Susan or any of the officials? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to the executive committee report. Alicia?
Yeah, so at the exec this past week, we had a resolution. We don't normally have resolutions come before the executive committee, but this was in order of an emergency. Actually, it was about the NYCHA blueprint, and I'm actually going to merge this with land use. Jackie, you are next in line. So if you'd like to share about this blueprint that we are voting on tonight, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Alicia. So the reason this wrestle go through exec is because NYCHA subcommittee normally reports to the land use committee, and whatever approved at the NYCHA subcommittee need to be approved by the land use as well. But the deadline for the state legislation commenting period is December 28th. So we cannot wait for another month for land use to approve it. So because of this urgency, so we bring this to the exec. And you just heard from Assemblywoman Neal. She opposed the plan, and at our NYCHA subcommittee meeting, we didn't take a position on whether we support the plan or not. We just think that despite NYCHA's outreach effort, there are still a lot of residents. They just don't have a clear and deep understanding about the plan. And also all the outreach effort right now is through Zoom and virtual. So many NYCHA residents who are monolingual or they don't have a computers are really not engaged due to the technological and language gaps. So we are asking NYCHA to put a pause on the plan during the pandemic. And that's basically what we have for the NYCHA blueprint for change. Any question on that?
Jackie, I just want to make sure that everyone received a copy of the reso. Did everyone get a chance to read it?
Went out to everyone yesterday.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that we vote all
On my best
together.
work, but it's okay.
Huh? I'm sorry. Who is that? Who is that? Andrea? Andrea, you didn't get a chance to read it?
I'm sorry, I was off mute and there's someone in the background. My apologies.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to ask that we will vote on this all together at the end, if this is possible. Someone, if there are no questions or comments on it.
Shall I go on?
Sure, hey, go ahead, Jackie.
So for land use, we also have a resolution on the zoning for coastal flood resilience text amendment. Like I mentioned in the last full board meeting, this resolution was referred back to the committee because we wanted to spend more time on it. And this month, we added the reasons why we rejected this plan. We recognize the city has good intention to improve neighborhood resilience through zoning, but we also want to point out that zoning alone does not sufficiently address those problems. And that's basically the summary of our resolution. Any questions?
Any questions for Jackie? I don't see any hands.
Okay, and then I also have a small announcement about the 70 Mulberry Street. So DCAS has confirmed that they are going to release the final report on Tuesday, December 22nd, 7 to 9 p.m. They would do it through a community meeting. The meeting information is already up on DCAS website. DCAS is going to issue a press release, but I'll share the information with our CB3 contacts who are interested on this topic. And that's the last information I have.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, thank you, Jackie. So we're going to go on to transportation.
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to start off by saying we had a joint item with Parks at this committee meeting. It's the first resolution that you will see on the vote sheet for our committee. It's in regard to the conversion of Robert Wagner Place to a one-way street in connection with the BMCR project, which made it a joint committee issue. We asked basically that if they wanted to make this conversion, that they add bollards for pedestrian safety and bike safety, and also bike lane traffic signals at certain intersections, rumble strips for the bikes, and a dedicated lane for joggers and pedestrians along that route. So that was the joint committee item. The next item that we had for resolution was back to just regular transportation committee, changing the signage on Attorney Street between Houston and Stanton for alternate side parking. Is a issue that had been coming up a lot within the 7th precinct. And we supported it with a lot of changes. It wasn't just switching up the signage. We basically asked different parts of the street to be changed either to loading zones or to the alternate side requests, as well as for DOT to come back with to CB3 with a more detailed explanation about how it's working out of the evaluation with these changes as well, and for better enforcement. Other than that, we had City Bike came in and talked about updates for the district of future locations that they'll put biking stations at. Some updates regarding ongoing traffic issues. We have the town hall coming up January 12th in regard to open streets and open restaurants, open restaurants and open streets restaurant programs. I believe you'll see the draft. No, excuse me. Sorry, it's 9 o'clock. You'll see the form come out soon with whatever questions people may have in regards to those programs. I'll be on January 12th. We are co-sponsoring that with Community Board 6, as well as our council members Chin and Rivera, and I believe Borough President Gail Brewer as well, if I'm correct, Susan, on that.
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
So they're all sponsoring this. There's will be numerous agencies there. This program has taken on a life of its own. It's gone beyond just a simple agenda item for committees. So we decided to make this a town hall. So that will be January 12th, and it will be in a webinar format similar to what we're doing here tonight. That's all I have in terms of questions. I'll take any questions on these resolutions from tonight if there are. And if not, after that, I have one more thing. No questions, comments, concerns. Okay. David, I don't know if you want to help me out. Should I make the motion on the previous from last month, the resolution from November?
Why don't you just briefly explain what happened, and then I will
Sure.
make a motion.
Sure. So in our November resolution for the protected bike lane, we voted on it, but we inadvertently left some language in the resolution, I believe in 2 of the whereas clauses that were not substantive to the resolution. They were data-based data-based, and we didn't have that information, and we needed to take it out, and we sent the resolution without making those changes.
I move to amend the resolution we passed in November titled NYC DOT Bicycle Unit Expanding the Protected Bike Network, Avenue C and East Houston Street proposal in order to make the following 2 deletions. First, strike the first 6 words from the beginning of the 5th whereas clause, East River Greenway ride count data. Second, strike the entire 8th whereas clause, which read, whereas description of proposed protected lanes, describe how they're moving on-street parking locations, installing paint barriers, shortening pedestrian crossings at intersections, etc. Done.
Can I get a second?
I should say done. Those are the words for it. Okay.
Lisa, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm confused. Did we see this? Is this on the agenda? Is this? It, I don't.
Lisa, it was
I'm sure
something
there's nothing. I'm sure there's. But let me finish, David. Is this? I'm sure it's not controversial, but it just feels not legit. I mean, it's not on the agenda. Is this parliamentarily appropriate?
It is. It is something we passed last month. We passed it with that language last month, and it's perfectly fine to do this. This is typically what happens if there was a mistake made in something that was previously adopted. Then you move to repair it, and these are pretty minor repairs to what we had passed.
I don't understand why it wasn't put on the agenda then.
Which agenda would you propose this go on to?
On the vote sheet.
Probably old business.
Well, but it's not old business. This is parliamentarily where you handle these things.
Okay.
It's not old business. It would be business, but we've done this before as well.
That doesn't make it right.
Well, it is right by parliamentary rules. It might be something that we want to talk about how we would do these things in the future. I mean, that may be right here, but if we want to do these things, handle them in a different way, it could be discussed at exec, and it could become a policy, I suppose. However, this is the easiest way to handle these things. It really is removing draft language that we just didn't fill in and that didn't realize it, and we passed a resolution with some draft language in it that needed to be edited out.
So David, this is from last month?
This was a motion that was passed last month. So this is a motion to amend something previously adopted. That's what it's called in Robert's rules.
I understand what Lisa is saying. Perhaps we could have refreshed everyone's memory.
Would you?
Can I help clarify?
Mm-hmm. Please.
So what we're amending, and we should have had it on the agenda, I think for people to see, there was 2 places where the office left in language that said get demographics was in one place, and the other, it says fill in number of space of, I think it was car spaces. So it was two placeholders that were accidentally left in, and that's what we're taking out. So one was get demographics and one was find number of spaces. We're now taking those placeholders out.
Right. It was a little more than that, the second one, but that's the nature of what it was. It was instructions to find something and fill it in.
Okay, Lisa.
Trevor has his hand up.
Trevor, go ahead.
If I don't know if we have a motion on the floor, but can we call a question so we can handle this? If there's no further discussion.
Does anyone have anything further to say about this? I don't see any hands. I don't see any hands. Okay. Okay.
So someone conduct a vote, which can be done by asking if there's objection.
Are there any objections to this amendment? I don't see any hands. Okay, it looks like there are no hands to object to anything. Okay. So then do we need to say, can we vote on it at the end all together with the vote sheet, or do we need to pull it?
You just voted on it. It was a unanimous vote on the amendment. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't understand that. I thought we were adding it to the vote sheet. In that case, I do object.
Anyone else object? I don't
It could
see
be added. I mean, that basically says there doesn't need to be a vote. So at this point, Alicia, you could say we'll put it into the vote sheet at the end, because this isn't the type of thing like an amendment where if it failed, you might want to have another amendment. This is the final disposition of it, so it can go to the end.
So it was previously voted on, so we don't need to vote to amend. Am I correct?
No, we do need to vote on my amendment, but it can be done at the end because it will be the final disposition of this. It is a main motion, so you may move it to the end of the meeting with the rest of the votes.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll move it to the end of the meeting with the total vote, with the end vote, okay? All right. Go ahead, Paul. Anything further?
I got nothing else. That was just the only thing. Sorry for the confusion, but I'm done with the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Next, I'm sorry, Larissa, can you show me your screen?
Oh, it's not showing?
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see it.
My apologies. It's there.
Okay, economic development.
Hi, everyone. Economic Development did a joint resolution with Arts and Culture, which is a subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee for this month. The resolution is in support of City Council Bill Intro 2068, which is basically legislation that supports cultural organizations being able to use the Open Streets programs just like businesses and other establishments do. We worked very hard on this resolution. It took us 2 meetings, and we did find out that this was negotiated and approved by City Council this past week. But we do feel like there are, certain, concerns that we raised in this resolution that we still would like to be sent to City Council or to whomever else. Basically to further flesh out how this will actually be implemented, which was the major concern of both committees. But in general, supporting the legislation was important. Are there any questions?
Any question? I don't see any questions from anyone. No
Great.
hands.
That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Anisha. Hold on one second. Let me go back. I'm sorry, guys. Just Having some technical difficulties right now. Oh,
Lisa, I believe Parks and Waterfronts is next. I can
yes,
start.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trevor. Parks and Waterfront.
In
Make it
addition
make it
to,
Alicia too. How's that?
There you go. Thank you. Parks and Recreation.
in addition to the resolution that Paul mentioned for transportation, we did do a resolution for a soccer pitch at PS 188, the third in our district. I'll keep it brief. Any questions?
Anything here? I don't see any hands, Trevor.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right, let me get out of here. Okay.
Human Services.
Okay, Human Services.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So Health and Human Services does not have any resolutions to vote on tonight. However, through our discussion on, schools and COVID-19 testing, many other questions arose, mainly around especially the needs of special ed students in this time of remote learning, the devices, and also, the COVID-19 testing as well. So we basically did a little planning on, discussing these items at these topics at future meetings, and possibly, passing a resolution, doing a family resource, a parent resource event to educate parents about all of this, and also letting them know about different leadership groups that they can participate in more to have their voice heard, and also connect with other parent leaders who are dealing with the same issues they're dealing with. Okay, so next month we will have one of our agenda items will be to plan for a parent resource event. It will have to be virtual, but it will focus on special ed students and supporting their families. Okay, the other agenda item, which is that we will have for next month, it's not education related, but it is COVID-19 related, and the Test and Trace Corps will be attending our meeting to give a presentation. We invite everyone who is interested to attend. They usually talk to you about the numbers and all the outreach that they are doing, and they always need plenty of more help. Even though the numbers in our area may be low compared to other community districts, it's still, as Susan mentioned, it is going up a little. And so there is cause for concern. So please come to the meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you, May. Okay, thank you, May. SLA?
There were 5 resolutions, or 5 applications rather, 5 resolutions in support of the applications with stipulations, and we received all of the stipulations. That's it.
We have landmarks next.
Okay.
Landmark.
Landmarks had one resolution. The Eldridge Street Synagogue is adding some security provisions. They've had a little trouble with vandals. So they are applying to the Landmarks Commission to allow some lighting on the 2 side entrances and to add some security to their fire escapes. And we approved that. We also had quite a lot of discussion about the fire and the Middle Collegiate Church particularly. I don't know if you all know that the Middle Collegiate Church is a national landmark, and that's a rare designation and means that, it's a pretty important building. So we have our fingers crossed for as much restoration as possible. And as Susan said, the Hopper House will be fine. It's damage to it is minor. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, so now we go to roll call vote.
Hooray.
Alicia, do we have any new business? Maybe?
Any new business? I'm sorry. Oh,
Yes.
I do want to make a few announcements as new business. For those that know Olympia Kazi, she's not here tonight because she lost her dad. So if you know Olympia, please send well wishes to her. Also, there was a member of the NYCHA leadership, Mr. Napoleon. He passed away also this past week. So if you know his family members, Camille Napoleon is a public member of our NYCHA and Section 8 subcommittee. Please send her out your well wishes as well. And also our Dominic Burke, he lost his brother in a tragic accident. So please, everyone, just be conscious of those that are mourning loved ones during this time. Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thanks. And I just wanted to thank all the board members for their contributions to the staff gratitude fund. It was a record year of collections, and so we're able to give especially generous gifts to our staff who support us every day with these meetings and with all the resolutions that we write. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for doing that, especially in a year when so many of us are having hardship. So thanks again. And then I just dropped in the chat something that I'd worked on with a local person, some like merch, shirts and stuff that support the Bowery mission. And also that's an LES version that I dropped in the chat. And there's also a Chinatown version of shirts and artwork that you can purchase that will support Send Chinatown Love. And they're cool gifts, I think. So, you know, a way to support your neighborhood and also give a fun gift to a family member or for yourself. Alicia, if there's something else, I'll do roll call.
Okay, yes, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks. David Adams.
Yes.
Thank you. Your own Altman. Jesse Beck.
Yes.
Dominic Berg. Lee Berman.
Yes, except SLA item 2, no.
Okay. Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu. David Crane.
Yes.
Felicia Cruikshank.
Yes.
Thank you. Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Alistair Economakis. Shirley Fennessy.
Yes.
Ryan Gillum.
Yes.
Deborah Glass.
Abstain.
The whole vote?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Herman Hewitt.
Yes.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Valentina Jones.
Abstain.
Tatiana Jorio.
All right, could you come back to me, Michelle?
Sure. Lisa Kaplan.
Is this a vote on everything, including the transportation item that from the prior month? Okay, I'm yes on everything except I abstain on that item.
Okay. Paul, what number is that?
There is no number.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Okay. All right. Olympic Hazy, absent. Joseph Kearns. Michelle Cooper-Smith. Yes. Mei Lee.
Yes.
Wendy Lee.
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Yes.
David Louie.
Yes.
Ellen Liu.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes, and if community board members are now allowed to profit by selling items during a meeting, then I have a bridge outside my window I'd like to interest you all in.
Oh, I wasn't profiting off of it. It's for charity, but Alex Militano,
Yes.
Michael Perlis,
Yes.
Tariq Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Rangel,
Yes.
Damaris Reyes, Richard Ropiak,
Yes.
Thomas Rosa,
Yes.
Robin Chattel, Heidi Schmidt,
Yes.
Larissa Shainberg,
Just want Larissa.
Larissa. Yeah, she's not on anymore.
She's on.
I'm here.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Did you not
Thank
hear
you.
me? I apologize. Yes.
No, I did not. That's okay. Clint Smeltzer,
Yes.
Anisha Stephen,
Yes.
Sandra Struther, Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez,
Yes.
Rodney Washington,
Yes.
Kathleen Webster,
Yes.
Jackie Wong,
Yes.
Ricky Wong, Ricky Wong, I see you're on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Tati, I'm coming back to you.
Yes. Sorry about that.
All right, no worries. Thank you.
Okay, so that all being said, I wish you, someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I
Okay,
second.
thank you so much. And I wish you all
Yes.
happy holidays. I hope to see you all Sunday.